getting after it with Brownie and Packy and BA in that group and making sure that he continues to make contact. He's going to punch out from time to time, but that hopefully we can build off that hit, man. That was a big part of that game. We've been needing that over the last week or so. So to see him come through there was awesome.
That is what it sounded like last night on FanDuel Sports Midwest. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Nolan Gorman comes through in the biggest moment possible in that game, and they needed that desperately, man. They get a win 10-4 last night in Atlanta to the St. Louis Cardinals. They are now 10-14 on the season. They're playing an early game today. Alex, Nolan Gorman had been 1 for his previous 15 for the Cardinals with 7 strikeouts since his return from the injured list. It had looked really bad. Looked better in New York, had a couple of decent games for himself up in New York, but then comes up in a huge spot. And I thought it was flat out the wrong decision to leave him in the game. I saw it happen, and I was like, are they really going to do this? Bases loaded, top of the 6th inning, lefty on the mound. The Braves decide to intentionally walk Wilson Contreras in order to pitch to Nolan Gorman. So you know what the Braves want. They have shown their hand, right? Our preference here is for our lefty reliever to go up against Nolan Gorman, not Wilson Contreras. We get the lefty-lefty matchup. This is the best-case scenario for us. Tie ball game, 4-4 at the time. And Ollie Marmol decides to leave Nolan Gorman in the game. Instead of going to his bench, you could have gone to Thomas Sajacy there, who's been really swinging a hot bat lately. You could have gone to Lucan Baker if you really wanted to in that spot. You have the flexibility right now because they kept Thomas Sajacy on the roster for that exact moment to give yourself the advantage at the plate. You also have a pitcher who is on the third batter, so there's no way they can remove him from the game. They're stuck. You have the advantage. They stick with Gorman in that spot. He flies out to center field, end of inning. You're tied 4-4 at the end of that one. It's like, damn, can't believe they let that opportunity go to waste. And then, couple innings later, you have Nolan Gorman coming to the plate. Again, this time, bases loaded, and he comes through with a huge double when they needed it most. Alex, that is the exact kind of scenario that we had talked about prior to the season of, what do you do here? You're going through a transition. It's not a true all-in season. If it was, they probably pinch hit in that spot for Gorman in the 6th inning. Last night they did not. He ends up coming through in the 8th, though. He makes good on his opportunity. Good for Gorman. Good for Ollie playing 4D chess when I could only see the 3D chessboard in front of me. What'd you make of the game last night, Alex?
It was what I've wanted to see from this Cardinals team this season. I don't care about the big picture. I care about finding out if Nolan Gorman's a guy that can hit in a big pressure situation. Because take you back to the top of the 6th inning, bases loaded, and he flies out and nobody scores in a tie baseball game. And I'm thinking, man, you're going to do this again with Nolan Gorman? And he comes through for it. So in a spot that the Cardinals are in this season to where, look, yeah, you'd love to make the playoffs, but really what it comes down to is Nolan Gorman a piece of the future? Is Lars Nootbaar? Is Victor Scott? Is Jordan Walker? Is Sajacy? All of these guys. I love the fact that he kept them in there. That could have bit the Cardinals completely. They could have lost that game, and I think everybody would probably be complaining about Ollie Marmol. I probably wouldn't have been because, look, Nolan Gorman's the guy you got to figure out who he is. Is he a guy that crumbles under the pressure, or is he a guy that comes through for you? It's a confidence booster for a Nolan Gorman, and I'm glad that they stuck with it.
Yeah, I was surprised they decided to stick with him because early on in the season, they were making those kind of moves. And all of a sudden, I don't know exactly what the date was where it happened. All of a sudden, we're right back into this whole refresh thing. Yeah. And
about
you know
a week
what?
Ago, I think.
It worked for him.
Transition.
Whatever we want to call it. It worked for him this time around. Look, if they want to give runway and they want to approach it this way, I'm totally fine with it. Long as that is the consistent theme for the next month or so, depending on what they end up doing and where they're at in the standings, maybe that changes. But as long as you're going to say, hey, we want to give runway to Nolan Gorman, we want him to get at bats, even against lefties, even in big situations in what was clearly not a favorable matchup for the St. Louis Cardinals, I'm okay with it as long as that's what you stick with. And then today, when he's in the lineup, I don't turn around behind me here and I see him pinch hit for in the exact same situation in the 6th inning. So long as they are consistent with what their message has been, which is, hey, he's getting a runway, I'm totally fine with the way they approach it because the right answer was probably to pinch hit with Sajacy. Now, I think there's a question of what Sajacy's real role is going to be if he's not getting that opportunity right there. But long as you're consistent with the messaging, I'm okay with the way Ollie Marmol handled it yesterday.
And they seem to be in intent on getting Nolan Gorman these opportunities now. Early on in the season, it was Alec Burleson who was getting this chance, and that was justified based on their 2 spring trainings. I will give a little bit of credit to the Cardinals here. They have rewarded production. And when Alec Burleson had the opportunity while Nolan Gorman is out, he didn't produce. And so now he has lost that opportunity in favor of Nolan Gorman, who over his last 3 games has 4 hits. It's not like anything crazy, but he's been producing a little bit. Okay, now it's Gorman's turn to have that opportunity for us. Thomas Ajayci played really well in the absence of Mason Wynn. Guess what? Now some of this was injury related or hurt. I don't know what you want to classify it as, but Donovan out the last couple of days. They wanted the insurance policy there. Totally fine. Whatever the explanation, they decided to keep him around for a little bit. Hey, you earned this opportunity. Stick around the big league club for a little bit. Cool, great. None of us thought they were going to do it. I'll give him credit where it's due. They also did that with Victor Scott. Spring training, Scott produces. He earns the opportunity in center field. They decided to give him that opportunity. So hell, Matthew Liberatore. Libby was really good in spring training. They decided to give him the opportunity over Steven Matz, who, hey man, it's the paycheck politics that we talk about all the time, payroll politics that we talk about. They didn't go with that this year. That is very different than what they have done in the past. So I will give them a little bit of credit. They are rewarding good results from some of these guys. Now, what I will be interested in finding out is, what does that mean for Nolan Gorman? Okay, what is this runway? Is it a week? Is it 3 weeks? Is it a month? How do they decide to go about this if he goes into another slump? Is it then, okay, we're back to Burleson again? I don't know, but I do like that they are rewarding some of these. They're rewarding young players with opportunity that produce when called upon.
It's what you're supposed to be doing this season. Like, if this would have been a spot where you're pinch hitting for certain guys, and look, when it's the JC, I mean, you're pinch hitting for another young player, so I guess I wouldn't be too upset about that, rather than they're pinch hitting for a guy like Lucan Baker in that spot. But this is what the season was supposed to be about. It's why there were 17 press conferences. It's why they've had 3 different words labeling what the season is. Find out what these young guys are and reward them when they have success. Why is Nolan Gorman going to get a little bit more of a runway? Because he's having success. And he did have success at the beginning of the season before he got injured.
It's really good early on.
Now, I know he went through the slump the same way that Alec Burleson has been doing, but hey, he was hitting. He's back to hitting. Is he a part of the future? That's the question. It's why Victor Scott, I wanted to make sure he was on the roster. You've got to reward these guys, and I give Ali a lot of credit. He is rewarding these players that are coming through in big moments that are younger players.
I'll give them partial credit.
And there's T-Bone.
Look, they are doing some of the production stuff, right? Like, they are making some of the right decisions. Liberatore, for example. Good call by the St. Louis Cardinals. Looks like that guy's going to be a number 5 starter. This one, I'll give them credit for, hey, at least they've got a plan. They're not playing production right now. If they were playing production, JC's getting this runway, not Gorman.
It's a combination of opportunity for guys that are at the end of the runway and production. Because JC's at the front end. He has.
Sure,
there is no timetable.
I agree with runway.
It's
It's not production.
It's
Gorman in his last 8 games prior to all of a sudden having a runway here had a 520 OPS. Alec Burleson on the season, 599 OPS. Thomas Ajayci is hitting 400, has a 989 OPS. Production would be Sajasi being in the lineup, not on the bench, would be my response.
I know. I clarified this. It is a rewarding of production for players that are at the back end of this opportunity. Nolan Gorman is about to hit arbitration. These are guys that have had opportunities in the past, and now they need to get answers on that. Thomas Ajayci is not in that situation right now. Thomas Ajayci is at the very front end of what could be a long-term opportunity here in St. Louis, or it could be a guy that ends up being a trade chip. We just don't know what his future holds. But he is very early in his career. There is not the same urgency to get answers on him the way that there is for Burleson, for Gorman, for Donovan, for Nootbaar, etc. Those guys are much further on into their major league careers. So I'm with you, T-Bone. If you were purely going about this with who are the best players that are producing the most right now, Thomas Ajayci should be in the lineup right now. I would just ask, who is the guy that you're taking out if you're going to make that decision? And I don't know that there is one if they're going to go this route with Nolan Gorman. We did get this from the 618. Why are we giving them credit for the obvious things, BK? Like rewarding players for playing well or sending down players that need to and not a good one into JC? Come on, man. Because this is not how they've operated at times in the past. Like that's why I am giving them a little bit of credit. I'm not telling you got to praise them to all ends. Like, I'm just saying that if they are doing things that competent baseball teams do now, that is a change from what it has been in previous years, where they have made baffling decision after baffling decision, and now they're not doing that. Now they're just doing stuff that good baseball teams do. They're operating the way that a competent baseball team should be run. And so, yeah, I'll give them credit for that. You can say that's the baseline of what it should be for this team. Totally fair, but I'll give them a little bit of credit for that.
Operating as a baseball team should, other than the bullpen, because like Ryan Fernandez probably shouldn't be with this team right now. You should be calling up Riley O'Brien and giving him reps in the bullpen.
I'd be fine with that.
Because that guy, if we're rewarding guys off of performance, he has not. Roycroft was sent down for the same reason that Ryan Fernandez is struggling right now.
I think there are some key differences there. Roycroft has never had any success at the major league level, really. Not any sustained success. Whereas last year, Fernandez was awesome for the majority
Roycroft
of the year.
was pretty good for them for the second half of the season.
He was fine. He didn't have like a sustained run of success the way that Fernandez did a year ago, especially in high leverage situations. This is something where I'm just going to defer to the team. I don't know if what Fernandez is working on can be done at the minor league level, because guys just might not swing, or might swing all the time at his slider, and at the big league level they're not going to. They're better at the pitch selection. So that is something I just honestly don't know the answer to this, as to whether or not what he's working on can be worked on at the minor league level, or if they would just start seeing the results change even if the process looks the exact same. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I still personally feel like that it's a guy that's struggling, and it's a pitcher that can work through some stuff down in the minors, and you've got somebody who can come up and fill that spot for you. Because you've got a Leahy, you've got a Maton, who have been performing in high leverage roles for you. Bring somebody up to work on it while Fernandez works on his stuff in the minors.
I would agree with that. I think you can look at more pitch profile than anything else just to find out if the slider works. Not so much base it on results. I mean, that's kind of what they've done in the past. I don't remember the exact pitcher who it was, but like we would look at the numbers, and I think we've even asked like Ali Marmol about this at the ballpark. Like, hey, how do you evaluate like AAA to the majors? And they're not really looking at stats. They're mostly looking at pitch profile.
I think is who you're thinking of.
That
because
might have been
early
who it
on
was.
last year, he was amazing with the results, and they looked at his pitch profile. They're like, that ain't gonna work. And then it didn't. It didn't work after like 6 weeks. All right, he's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, there's been a lot of rumors over the last 24 hours on what exactly the first round of the NFL draft is going to look like, where Shedeur Sanders could end up going, if he's going to go at all in the first round this year. We'll talk about that coming up in 15 minutes. But next, I'm not asking this to be critical, I promise. I'm genuinely curious. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line, and the YouTube chat is available for you at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. If you are optimistic that the Blues will come back in this series, what is it that gives you that optimism? What is it about this team or their current situation that makes you believe they'll win the next 2 games at home? We'll talk about that, give you some possibilities next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the air comfort service text line. YouTube chat is available for you at youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. I promise you, I do not say this with any judgment in my voice whatsoever, Alex. I just want to get the answers from you guys. If you are a Blues fan that is optimistic that they will come back in this series, what is it about what you've seen from the first 2 games of this series? What is it about the Blues makeup, whatever it might be, that gives you optimism, gives you confidence that they will be able to do so? I want to get the text line's thoughts on this. We'll certainly get some thoughts from the YouTube chat as well. Alex, for you, if you're looking at it through the optimistic prism, what is it about what you've seen so far that gives you that optimism?
That these both have been 1-goal games. These haven't been blowout games that Winnipeg has dominated you from start to finish, and you've had like spurts of 5 minutes where you've been good. You've been the better team in the first period in both games. It's been even, in my opinion, in the second period in both games, and Winnipeg has beaten you in the third period both games. And it's been the same line that's beaten you in the third period of both games. So for me, the optimism is, look, I think Jim Montgomery is one of the smartest coaches in hockey, and he's had his opportunity to work with this team. He's seen what that looks like, and now you get back on home ice, and you have the ability to match up the way that you prefer the matchup. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. Teams don't do this. 85% was the number BK brought up of when you go down 2-0 in a series, and frankly, the Blues have only done it twice in franchise history. But these haven't been 4-1, 5-1, 6-2 losses. These have been 1-goal losses in both games. One ended 90 seconds before the end of regulation, and the other one, they scored 90 seconds into regulation. You've got to figure out how to crack this Winnipeg Jets defense at even strength. And to me, if you can do that, if you can start to generate a little bit more offense, I think you can get back into the series.
I worry that offensively they're not going to be able to do much better than they have been, at least at 5-on-5. So I would say that, like, the thing that I could look at and say, you know what, if I'm going to have if I'm going to view this at a positive way and say, hey, maybe they have a chance of coming back in this, it would be kind of twofold for me. It would be, one, you can beat Winnipeg Jets in the special teams battle. Can you score on the power play and limit them from not doing damage there? And then Binnington steals the show at 5-on-5. That would be the two things for me, because that feels like the formula that we've seen over years, where there are times where you look at a team and go, okay, they're probably not the favorites in this series. And what happens is their goalie stands on their head, and then they don't win at 5-on-5, but they win at special teams. I think that's probably the path for the St. Louis Blues if they're going to make this series interesting.
To me, it's just you're shorting Winnipeg. Like, you're saying what they did at home is what they've done at home all year. They've been the best home team in the NHL. And once you are able to get the last change, you're able to get the matchups that you're looking to dictate. You have some of this time off. Maybe your guys get a little bit healthier. I saw earlier today, Alex, looks like Robert Thomas was not on the ice. I'm guessing a maintenance day for him.
Keeping him off as long as possible.
They've got Texier back into the lineup today at morning skate. They make some changes. They get re-energized. Maybe you get a 5% better version of Parayko and Thomas, and you get a little bit more chemistry on that second line with Shin and Kyrou. All of that comes together. Weird Hellebuck game, and boom, you're right back into this thing. You win game 3, Binnington steals game 4 for you, and you're going back to Winnipeg in a tie series 2-2. To me, it's as much about you're shorting Winnipeg as it is any individual thing that you've seen from the Blues that would give you confidence they're coming back. And I don't mean for that to sound pessimistic about the Blues. It's just, I think it's as much about Winnipeg as it is about the Blues right now.
Yeah, and I can understand that. And again, I mean, I'm optimistic on something that, frankly, has not been there in this series, and that's even strength offense. You've scored one even strength goal. The chances, we went through those numbers yesterday. But I watched the first 2 periods of both games, and it wasn't Winnipeg is clear-cut better than you. Winnipeg was clear-cut better than you in the third period. And guess what, guys? The third period is very important, and you got to play all 3 if you want to win these hockey games. So to me, that's the area of focus. Again, this is not going to be an easy task, especially it's obvious Thomas isn't 100%. We know Parayko's not 100%, and you're still searching for chemistry without Dylan Holloway on those depth lines. I like the decision to put Texier in because, frankly, you need offense, and he's at least somebody who, with the flick of a wrist, can score. But to me, this is simple. This is, you've got to establish net front presence. That's how you're going to do this.
For sure.
This isn't like even strength. They're just limiting you, and you've got no success to shoot pucks. You've beaten Connor Hellebuck with nobody in front of the net. Now you start putting bodies in front of the net, and this is just digging down deep and going to the front, standing in front of Hellebuck, making the defenseman have to fight you through, and that's how you draw power plays when you do that, and it's been an area of strength for this Blues team. Again, this is not going to be easy, and frankly, I personally think you've got to win game number 3, because otherwise, if you're down 3-0 with the potential of going back to Winnipeg, that's going to be Winnipeg thinking like we can make this easy and rest up.
Let's hear from the text line now. Magic Bean says, Hellebuck has been exposed in this series. It doesn't matter when they're doing it. They got to put shots on goal, and they've got to get up high on him. Alex, this is something you mentioned after game number 1. The Blues were playing coy about it. They're like, oh, no, it's not something that we saw necessarily. We just, it happened to be the goals that we scored ended up being up high. Seemed pretty clear in game number 2. That was something they were trying to exploit against Connor Hellebuck. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like he's been exposed? Because I thought in period number 1 of game 2, he did not look very good. He looked shaky. And then I thought he settled in a little bit as the game went along. So I don't know how much of that is going to carry over into game number 3. But what did you think about his performance?
Yeah, I think he's shaky. I think he showed his weakness. I actually believe he was shaky in the 3rd period, too. He got lucky bounces. The one save that happened, he missed it off of his glove and then had to spin around and swat it away, and his defenseman had come in. That to me, is the weakness for Connor Hellebuck. You've got to go up high on him. And if you go back and watch that breakaway that Kyrou had in the 2nd period of game 1, he didn't go up high, and you saw his reaction on the bench. He was shaking his head. He was kind of MFing himself because he knew that he missed that. The Blues have one of the best goalie coaches in the NHL in David Alexander, who he comes to the bench on shootouts so he can give his expertise on the other team's goalie for the shooters. I personally think that this team is going to see that and say, we've got to start getting shots up high. But again, shots up high don't matter if you don't have bodies in front of the net. You're not going to beat them point blank every single time. Snuggerud did it. Thomas did it. The goal Kyrou scored, that was because Sundqvist was standing in front of the net. But yeah, I don't believe Connor Hellebuck is this world beater. I think there is some shaky tendencies of when one goes by him, it's like, oh, shoot, I've got to tighten things up. And that's where the Blues really need to pounce. It's just they haven't been able to put multiple goals up in one period to really put the pressure on Winnipeg.
I want to get to a few others of these texts on the text line right now. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. From Me and Love, 2 words, Jordan Bennington. From Steve in Wildwood, if you put somebody on 81 in the 3rd period, we'll win. From Mahomes' long body, the Blues have been really good on home ice this season. Also, a combination of that plus Hellebuck not looking great gives me some optimism as the Blues come home for home ice. And from the 636, guys, when the Blues have their backs against the wall or when they face adversity this year, they have always found ways to win. That is something that I do think is worthy of mentioning here for sure. The Blues this year have faced as much adversity as any team in the NHL. Mm-hmm. Whether that was injuries early on with both Parayko and Thomas, sound familiar, or if that was having their coach get fired midway through the season, or if that was they had to go through a 12-game winning streak just to get back into playoff contention, and then they went through a losing streak and had to win it on the final game of the regular season for them to get into the playoffs. Like, they have seen some moments like this where I don't think being down 2-0 is going to necessarily get in their heads the way that it would for most other teams in the NHL. Doesn't mean they'll come back in the series. They might just not have enough. Jets might be too good, but that's a really good point on them facing adversity and being prepared for the situation.
Yeah, and right here is the biggest part of the adversity, because that team knows if you go down 3-0, I mean, the odds are significantly against you if they aren't already, but you make it 2-1, you at least can put some doubt. Teams have come back from 2-0 in a series to at least even it up and still lose in those final 3, and Scotty Bowman's quote is, a playoff series doesn't start until a home team loses, and the Blues haven't done that yet. So to me, I went into a rabbit hole last night because we've got Chris Pronger tomorrow, and I was like, okay, this guy's been in series before that were down 2-0, and I started to notice a trend, and I'm like, okay, so I started to look at other series that teams were down 2-0 and came back and tied the series up. Game 3, typically, you've seen shutouts or you've seen 2-1 overtime games. And to me, looking at it, the other team, the team that's up 2-0, had put 35, 40 shots up. You need your goalie to steal you a game. That's what Game 3 to me is going to be. This screams overtime. This screams 1-0, 2-1. this is going to have to be the Jordan Bennington show, because what that does is it gives a little life to the players of saying, cool, our goalie's locked in. Now we can go find the game that we need. And think about it. You've got 2 days off, game number 3. Let's say hypothetically you do win and you get down 2-1. Now you've got another 2 days off before game number 4. That's an opportunity for the Blues to hopefully pounce. But trend-wise, it's going to come down to your goaltending just putting on a show in game number 3.
I feel like one of these games, you need a goaltending show, and the other game, power play.
Or bounces. You would need some lucky bounces.
Yeah. Power play, to me, would be the thing that ends up getting you over the top, because that has been, especially post Dylan Holloway's injury, that's been the equalizer for the Blues. They have not been able to get the same 5-on-5 offense going. And if you can get that power play going, we've seen that at times in the series already. They are super aggressive, is Winnipeg, on the PK. If you're able to get them flowing in one direction, boom, you go cross ice. You've got an open shot there, and they've got shooters now on that power play to be able to capitalize. I think that's the way that they could potentially get one of these. So power play game, goalie game, and then boom, you've equalized this series. You're back at 2-2, heading back to Winnipeg. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In 15 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers. But next, there's been a lot of rumors on where these quarterbacks are going to go in this year's draft. What do we make of the latest rumors and innuendo out there? We'll get into it next with NFL Quick Hitters on BK and Ferrario.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals currently in action against the Atlanta Braves as they lead Atlanta 1-0 in the top of the second. And Game 3 of the Blues-Jets series will be tomorrow night here on your home of the Blues 101 ESPN. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 7:30 with Alex Ferrario, then puck drop at 8:30 with Chris Kerber and Joey Vitale. The Sports Center is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, it is officially draft season. You know how much I love the draft. Unfortunately, this year, not much of a conversation for us because, fortunately, we have Blues hockey. And tomorrow, we're going to be out at Enterprise Center where we're going to be focusing the vast majority of the show on game number 3 between the Blues and the Jets. So,
Cardinals could take 2 or 3 from the Braves.
But we know they won't. And we know there's hockey.
Our preview right now for tomorrow night's draft. Round 1 of the draft is tomorrow. And over at The Athletic, Diana Rossini, I think, is one of the best insiders in the business. She put out 20 things that she is hearing about round number 1. 20 different things.
All right, hit me, Diana.
We will not get into each and every one of these, but I will sum up like the first 5 for you. Hey, every team in the top 10 is looking to move down other than the Titans. Titans said no, we want Cam Ward. Everybody else said, what do you got? We'll listen.
Checks out.
This is a weird draft, Alex. There's a good defensive end in Abdul Carter. Now, he has a foot injury, but otherwise he's a good player. Not a whole lot of questions about his profile. Travis Hunter's awesome, but he's a wide receiver corner, and those guys don't typically go in the top 3, but hey, great player, could potentially play 2 ways. Cool. After that, it's like a running back, a bunch of tackles that have T-Rex arms and might have some bump inside to guard, a couple of tight ends, a wide receiver that people have questions about his commitment to playing football and how much he actually loves the sport. Defensive end that's like a tweener, might be a linebacker, might be a defensive end. We're not totally sure what his position is at the next level. A cornerback with serious injury questions, including a knee problem that might be debilitating. Like, there's a lot of stuff about this draft. You think we're going to see much movement in the first round, Alex? Because it seems like everybody wants to move down. I haven't seen a whole lot about teams that want to move up.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, everybody wants to move down, but who's going to be willing to spend the assets to move up? None of these guys, like I was just looking at a most recent mock draft earlier today by Bucky Brooks, and like a tight end is potentially in his draft going 7th overall. This was the description for the 5th overall pick. The safest pick in the draft, a blue chip defender in the middle of the line who brings his lunch pail to work. Man, in the NFL, I don't know if I want a lunch pail
Mason
guy.
Graham, defensive tackle from Michigan.
I don't know if I want a lunch.
Based on the description, I was guessing.
I don't know if I want a lunch pail guy as my 5th overall pick. I kind of need a game changer. Kind of need a difference maker. So yeah, we can talk all we want about, hey, we want to move down. Yeah, every team's hanging up going, yeah, but I'm not paying you what you want to move up in this draft.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see a lot of movement into the top 10. I think you might see it towards the back part of round 1, where you might see some teams trying to trade back into the first round and maybe go and acquire somebody. I just don't know who the team is that's moving up, because typically when we talk about moving into the top 10, it's typically for a game changer at defensive end, or it's for the quarterback. And I don't see anybody moving up to go get a quarterback in the top 10, and I don't see anybody moving up to try and get Carter, or Abdul Carter, to me, is going to be selected in the top 3. There's nobody else I think anybody's moving up into the top 10 to go get. So my expectations, we're not going to see anybody moving to the top 10 this year.
It sounds like the guy that teams are interested in moving up for, I can't believe I'm about to say this, is Ashton Genty, the running back out of Boise State.
I mean, I get it. At least he's a difference maker.
He's a stud. He might be one of the 4 blue chip players in this year's class. Now, he plays running back, so
BK hates him.
There's only so much value that a running back can have. If you're New England, Alex, it sounds like most of the buzz, and this was in her piece over at The Athletic from Diana Rossini, they're interested in offensive linemen. They're looking at Will Campbell. They're looking at Armand Mimbu, the Missouri offensive tackle. They're looking to potentially boost their offensive line. But Mike Vrabel, when he had success in Tennessee, it was mostly supported by a running back in Derrick Henry. He was the star of the show. Do you give any credence to the idea that New England at number 4 overall could say, you know what, screw it. The best player on the board right now is Ashton Genty. Let's just go ahead and take him.
I don't think I would, because if I'm Mike Vrabel, as much as I had success with the running back, I don't think Ashton Genty's Derrick Henry, and I also know that my success is going to be based off of my quarterback, and I need to protect him. Now, I don't know. I mean, you've told me multiple times that these offensive tackles have T-Rex arms, which is very concerning if I'm the Patriots. Like, if I'm Mike Vrabel, my first option is to go get Travis Hunter if I can trade for him. But it doesn't sound
unlikely.
Like very true. So if that's the case, yeah, as much as I think Ashton Genty is a difference maker, I still think if you're New England, priority number one is making sure your quarterback isn't run through the turf every single week. So I would probably stick with offensive tackle there.
Yeah, I would go with tackle if I'm New England. Their quarterback already, Drake May, I already believe has a higher ceiling than what he ever had in Tennessee, which was Ryan Tannehill. And I can't remember, was he there when they had Mariota? I think he was.
Yeah, briefly.
You shouldn't be building around a running back. That is a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. And look where it got Tennessee. They had really one good year, and they got bounced in the first round of the playoffs. So I would be protecting the quarterback. I agree with Alex. I think you've got to protect Drake May. If you can keep him upright, maybe you don't end up winning at a significant rate next year, but at least you keep the quarterback healthy, and then you can start to build around him.
I think I would go tackle, but man, Genty is appealing.
If I'm the Cowboys, I'm doing everything I can to trade up to that to get Genty.
So that was my follow-up question. Genty seems like he's the prize in this year's draft outside of the top three. He's the guy that the Cowboys seem to want, the Bears would really like. There's some buzz that New Orleans would really like to get Ashton Genty. Vegas certainly is interested in him. Jacksonville, it sounds like, is kind of torn between Ashton Genty, the running back, and Tet McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona. So a lot of teams potentially interested in Genty. Out of those teams that I just mentioned, Jacksonville, Vegas, New Orleans, Chicago, Dallas, who would you most like to see Genty play for?
Mine would be Dallas. Dallas is number one. Chicago's like tied for first, though. Because I think with Ben Johnson, I mean, look at the success Ben Johnson had when he had Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit.
They're number one for me for that reason.
And I think Dallas is number one because I'm sick of seeing the running backs that they're trying to get by with. And I'd like to see a difference maker for that team just to see if it changes anything. But, yeah, I mean, Chicago with Ben Johnson would be really appealing. The problem is I think if you're one of those two teams, you have to trade to number 6. Because I don't think he's going to go past number 6. Vegas, to me, screams they're going to select Genty.
Yeah, I think Chicago's the one for me. Like, Vegas would be interesting. Geno, Genty, Brock Bowers. They don't really have a wide receiver, though, that would necessarily fit to where you really like that offense. Chicago's the one. You got Caleb Williams, you've got Genty, you've got a really good wide receiver core. He makes sense for them. But the problem then for them is still, okay, well, how are we protecting Caleb Williams? They did a pretty good job in free agency bringing in some guys to try and help out.
Toomey is now a Bear, and it breaks my heart.
Yeah,
he'll be good for them.
He makes the most sense for them. All those other teams, I just don't think they need a running back that badly.
Last thing here, before we get to questions and answers on the other side, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Where do you guys think that Shedeur Sanders is going to go? It's the number one storyline in this year's draft, if we're being honest. He was hyped up. There was talk about him being in the top 5, and then he now seemingly is a fringe first-round candidate. People are wondering, okay, if he doesn't go to New Orleans at 9, where does he go? Alex, for you, where do you think Shedeur Sanders ends up going?
I think it's going to be New Orleans. I think they can try and play it down as much as they want, but they're desperate to figure out their quarterback situation. And I think I saw Tom Pelissero's report of like one NFL executive was like, nope, this guy is so going to be a bust. He's got problems. He's way too full of himself. Checks out. But I think if you're the Saints, you're desperate. You need something. You need cost-controlled players. So I think they'll be the one that selects Shedeur.
I don't feel confident in my answer, but I'm going Giants still. I think that they will take him at 3. And the reason I say that...
Really?
Everything reading is, hey, they are a desperate organization. A desperate organization with a GM and a head coach that knows their job's on the line doesn't take a defensive end and runs their quarterback room out there for week 1. So I think it's the Giants. I think they will take him. I'm not buying the buzz that they're not going quarterback.
I don't think they are. I think they are going to go with something else. I think the Rams are going to take him.
Oh.
I think the Rams are going to take him. I think they're going to move up a little bit. I think there's been some buzz about the Rams moving up for a tight end. I don't think that buzz is real. I think they're going to move up potentially to select Shedeur Sanders, and I think they probably do so at number 20 overall. The Denver Broncos select 20th. The Pittsburgh Steelers are at 21. Everybody knows the Steelers need a quarterback. Even if they're not necessarily in on Shador, they're in on a quarterback this year somewhere. I think the Rams want to get their answer for the long term beyond the Matt Stafford era. I think this is the year that they decide to do it. I think the Rams will ultimately select Shador Sanders in the first round of this year's NFL draft. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Questions and answers coming up next year on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers from the 618. Guys, do you think there's a real chance that the Bengals come to St. Louis? Where is this coming from?
I have not seen that anywhere other than the text line every single day.
I saw Fox 2 did a story on it, and then I read the story, and I was like, lease is up. St. Louis could use a football team.
So you're thinking we're getting them?
The mayor said that she would love to have them.
Are the Blues? Is St. Louis the only place that could use a football team? Only place, huh?
I don't know, man. Sorry.
I bet San Diego wants one again.
To answer the question direct, no, I don't think there's a real chance. Like, St. Louis has the same problem that Cincinnati has. They don't have a stadium.
Yeah, well, St. Louis is...
We have the Battle Dome, okay?
Yeah.
St. Louis is kind of got like a downtown problem. They got to figure that out before we can worry about a football team.
Way to bring politics
I didn't mean to get political.
Seriously, that's Brandon's job.
You're right. From the 636,
Touché.
BK, didn't Mimbu play guard at Mizzou? Why are they projecting him to play tackle in the NFL? No, played right tackle in the NFL or at Mizzou, and I think he has the athleticism to play on the left side. He was really good over on the right side, so there was no reason for Mizzou to switch him while he was in college. But that's why he's projected to play tackle at the next level. And I think he'll be really, really good at the next level. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Guys, if there is a surprise pick in the first round at quarterback, who do you think it will be? I've got one for you. Jalen Milroe, I think, is somebody that if there's a surprise, I think it's him. The guy is unbelievably athletic, like a mirror image of what Justin Fields was, athleticism-wise. And Justin Fields, the athleticism ain't why he didn't work out. He was great at that. He just couldn't throw it very well. Milroe to the Steelers is something that I'm keeping my eye on. He just makes so much sense for them, man. So I think he would be the surprise to me. Do you guys have anybody else that makes sense in that regard?
I mean, I don't even know if it's really a surprise because I've heard his name a lot. Jackson Dart's the one that I think you could see in the first round.
Yeah.
I've seen his name a lot.
He's another one that I think makes sense for the Steelers, for New Orleans. I've even seen some buzz on him to the Giants if they decide to trade up into the first round again.
Oh, that makes sense.
Not at 3.
That makes sense. Take Abdul Carter and then get your quarterback later. Okay, that makes sense.
Mine would be the Louisville quarterback, Tyler Shough.
I think is how he goes by it.
He's the one. Because I think it was in Diana Rossini's piece today, there's somebody out there that believes he's the best quarterback in the class. And my question is, who's that team? Because I could see where if that team is saying that to people, maybe they're the team that either it's like the Giants, for example, that takes someone else higher in the top 10 and then trade back into the late in the first round to go select him.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Guys, where's Luther Burden going to go in this year's draft? It depends where you look. Some places have him late first. Other places have him early second. I have heard a rumor that the Titans really love Luther Burden and would like to see him there at the top of the second round. So I think he goes in the top 35. If that means first round, I don't know. I don't know where he ends up fitting in the latter stages of the first round. My guess is top of the second round.
That would be surprising. That would be a fall from grace as well. Because he was supposed to be a top 15, top 20 pick. If he falls into the second round,
that's got to be because of the size, right?
Size.
Luther,
he didn't have a great.
He's just a pure slot receiver. He doesn't run anything other than crossers and slants.
Yeah. He didn't have a great combine either, right?
He's okay.
Okay, I was gonna
his
say.
combine was fine.
I think he'll go late first. Now, where he ends up going, I'm not 100% sure. But I think he will be a first-round pick. I think he'll be anywhere in that 20 to 32 range.
Feels about right. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show for questions and answers. Final one here. Guys, who do you think has been the most surprisingly good player for the Cardinals so far this year? Who has been the most, the biggest positive surprise for the Cardinals this year?
Oh, man. I could come up with a couple of them. Probably.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, go.
Matthew Liberatore. I don't think it's close. He's been a legitimately good starter for the Cardinals, and I didn't know that he had this in him. So it's only 4 starts, super small sample size. We'll see how it sustains. But so far this year, he's eating innings in a way that I didn't think he was capable of, frankly. And he's just been really solid overall. So I'll go Matthew Liberatore.
Part of me still is not sold on Matthew Liberatore.
That's fair.
So that's why I think mine would be Jordan Walker.
In a positive way?
Yeah.
I've not been impressed.
Yeah. I mean, I've been impressed for how his defense has taken strides, and I think he's been much better at the plate than what we've seen over the last couple of years. He's still not getting the ball off the ground, and he's still not showcasing that power, but he's been much better at the plate than what I have seen the last 2 years.
He's hitting 205.
I think his eye is better. I don't think his bat-to-ball skills are better. I would say just to go different from Liberatore would be Kyle Leahy. If they didn't have Kyle Leahy, guys, I have no idea what this bullpen would look like right now.
That's a good one.
Leahy, I think, it's either third or fourth best opponent batting average against. Like, he has been really good. So I would say Kyle Leahy would probably be second, because I agree. I think it's probably Libby 1. I would go Leahy 2, and then I'd probably say Scott 3.
I was going to put Scott into this conversation.
Scott should be up there.
He's been really good, man.
Yeah.
The way that he's been able to bounce back after what was a pretty significant slump for him for like a week or two, I've been very impressed by what he's done. And then, I mean, you can make a case for Donnie. Like, Donnie's just been amazing for them. We all knew he was going to be a good player. I didn't see this. He's a 355 hitter with real slugs so far this year. He has 7 doubles already on the season. So that's another one that's been surprising.
So JC'd be up there too, I think.
You can add in Arenado.
Yeah. Yeah.
He hasn't been like a MVP performer, but he's been a hell of a lot better than he was last year.
Yeah. And his power, he's not hitting for home run power, but he's hitting for doubles. And that's what feels weird is, like, when I talk about his doubles, I feel like they barely get over the third baseman's head, and then he's somehow at second base.
On the negative side, I could say Burleson.
Yeah, that's...
Because I thought that guy was going to be one of your impact hitters this year.
Burley, Contreras.
Contreras has been surprising at how good he's been at first base, though.
I think that's fair.
I mean, like, much. I thought we'd be talking about like 5 or 6 errors in
Like
the first
Jose
2 weeks of the
Martinez
season.
experience.
Yeah, like I thought this was going to be bad.
Fernandez has been disappointing.
Yeah. I'd put, this might be a little cruel, but he's had 2 really kind of short outings. Palante's been a little disappointing, in my opinion.
He's just been hit and miss. He looks like a number 5.
He's a pitch to contact guy,
fair.
so I mean, like, I kind of
He
expected
has
that
a
with him.
4.0 ERA on the season. I'd say that's kind of what I expected out of him. Somewhere around there. 6 innings, 4 earned runs against a really good Mets lineup. 7 scoreless innings against the Phillies. 5 innings, 2 earned runs against the Twins. 4 1/3, 2 earned runs against Boston. And then yesterday, 4 1/3, 4 earned runs against Atlanta. When you're watching them, they are so incredibly ugly to watch that the bad starts feel horrible. It's kind of the Dakota Hudson thing, honestly.
Oh,
just don't watch.
Oh.
If you just look at the bottom line results, they're really not that bad. But as you're watching them, it feels miserable. It feels as though you're watching in quicksand.
Watch it, because you're going to see some magic take place of how he Houdinis himself out of this disaster.
He's definitely done that a few times, and that was the Dakota Hudson Classic. John Gant's another one.
John Gant. Well, that was a Gant
we
classic.
came back on the air almost every week, and we were like, how does John Gant keep doing this?
You can't keep getting away with
And then the
it.
Cardinals traded him for J-Hap. And we're like,
Who was
smart.
Who was a savior for him?
Yeah, it was a really good trade for them. All right. He's Alex S. T-Bone. I'm BK. More likely to happen in 15 minutes. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You guys give us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely. But next, we got to continue talking about the Cardinals. This offense is finding ways to produce, even while some guys are going through slumps or injuries. We'll talk about it next year on BK and Ferrario. Alex, the Cardinals' offense has been a topic of discussion in recent seasons for not so good reasons.
Why is that?
Well, they weren't very good, and they would have these games where they have this offensive outburst, right? Kind of similar to yesterday, where they score 10 and you get all excited, and then
he comes back and he's like, this offense is going to be the best since 2013.
That's right. Yeah, this is what it's going to look like. Get excited, Cardinals fans. The offense has arrived.
We are back.
And then the next 5 games, they score like 1, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 1, 0. That's kind of the way that it went. And so overall, the average, you'd look at it, you'd be like, oh, okay. Scored 3.5, 4 runs per game. They're like 18th in Major League Baseball in runs per game. And then you actually go through it, and you're like, man, but in 60% of the games, they're not competitive offensively. So sure, the average is really good, but if you went with like the median instead of the mean situation here, the median outcome is they score 2 runs, and that's terrible if you're a Cardinals fan. And it's miserable to watch, honestly. The opposite has been true this year. The Cardinals this year, Alex, if you're looking at it and you're thinking to yourself, all right, how often do they score at least 3 runs? So basically, how often do you give yourself a chance to be in it offensively? The Cardinals have done so on the season 18 times. Only 6 teams in Major League Baseball have scored 3 or more runs more often than the Cardinals this year. It's the Diamondbacks, the Giants, the Tigers, Marlins, strangely, Dodgers, Yankees. Those are the teams in Major League Baseball that have done it more often than you. Now, I will say, those teams, when doing so, this is their winning percentage. 700, 750, 737, 600, 789, 684, 780, 722. So when they score at least 3 runs, they win a lot. The Cardinals are 9-9 in such games.
And why is that, Brandon?
Because their pitching kind of stinks right now.
Specifically?
The bullpen.
Thank you.
The Cardinals' offense probably isn't getting the praise that it deserves right now because it's not leading to the winning that it should.
Yeah.
They look like the Washington Nationals, who are 10-8 in those games, or the Atlanta Braves, who you're going up against right now. You saw yesterday what their pitching looks like. They're 9-8 in such games. The Cincinnati Reds, 9-8 when they score 3 or more runs in a game. The Cardinals are going through what a lot of these younger teams go through, or what these teams that are in transition go through that do not have a deep bullpen. They're scoring the runs. They're just not finding a way to win.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the bullpen is why you're losing games is a good thing because, like, bullpens you can fix. Like, if this was your starting pitching because you're losing games or your offense because you're losing games, there's bigger problems to be had. Here's what I didn't anticipate saying on April 23rd. The Cubs and the Cardinals are the 2 of the top 5 offenses in Major League Baseball when it comes to OPS. Like, I didn't expect that. And I know the Cubs got Kyle Tucker, but I still thought the Cubs were going to be a up and down team, and they've been great. The Cardinals offense is right there with them. So the path to a playoff spot this year is your offense, but the path to getting back to a sustained winning window is all of these young players who are coming through with opportunities for the Cardinals.
Can I just say real quick, I love Pozo.
He's great.
There's another young player that I didn't know. Apparently, we have a plethora of catchers.
I don't think he's young.
He looks young. Let's find out.
I think he's 29, if I'm not mistaken. He's old.
That's pretty
He
young.
had a big league
born in
opportunity.
97.
Yeah, he's 27 years old. He'll be 28 this year.
It's right there,
That's
man.
old. You know, in our industry, I'm young. In that industry, that's old.
Looks pretty good to me. He made it to second base.
You know what? I this is gonna sound crazy because I'm the nerdy numbers guy on the show, right? Really in this media market. The Cardinals are batting .266 this year. That does so much to make you feel better about the offense. They're second in Major League Baseball in batting average on the year.
And look at who's got the hits on the team to put them in that position.
It just feels better when you're watching a game and you don't see them striking out all the time, and you don't see them like failing to put the ball in play, or when they do, it's just really soft contact. The Cardinals are hitting for average this year, and that aesthetically, it's a more pleasing version of the offense to watch.
Yeah, and we'll think about this too. I mean, you mentioned kind of like, hey, look at who's doing this so far for the Cardinals. It's Pozo, but like think about the guys that aren't hitting, right? Like they don't have Ivan Herrera right now.
Wilson Contreras
hasn't hit all season long. Jordan
Walker's
Walker
batting .205.
has not hit all season long. Burley has not hit all season long. You look at Nolan Gorman, he's been kind of up and down. He's not hitting for average. He's got the OPSs there. I mean, it's not it's fun to think about what they can look like when they finally get to whether it be full strength or if they can fix some of these swings. And when I say fix some of these swings, I'm talking mostly about Burley and Walker. Contreras looks like he's starting to
I think he's going to be fine.
He's going to be fine. He looks like he's starting to find his rhythm again. Like, this offense is going to be really good. It just comes down to about what you said, Alex, which is, hey, this bullpen, man, bullpens, boy, it's nice that this is the part that's struggling because you can fix it. Well, the Cardinals got to show a willingness to fix it. Right now, they seem more focused on the development and let's work with the guys that are up here. Well, you're wasting this offense right now because maybe this offense does come back down to earth a little bit. And if it does, then what's it going to look like if you're still sticking with a bullpen that's not getting guys out?
So to your point on the guys that are doing it right now, here are the players on the roster currently that are batting 260 or above. Thomas Sajaci, he's batting 400.
On the bench.
Ivan Herrera, batting 380, hasn't played now in 2 weeks. Brendan Donovan, batting 355. That'll come down a little bit, probably not too much, but a little bit, I would assume, at a certain point. Pozo, who came into today batting 315 and just added a double to his resume. Victor Scott, who is now batting 290 on the season. 290 so far for the year. Really amazing start for him. And then Nolan Arenado, who's batting 270. We all thought coming into the season he's probably more of an average hitter at this point in his career. He's continued to do that so far. Out of those guys, I did not expect this from Scott, Pozo, or Sajaci. And Donovan, I thought, would be in this criteria of 260 or above, but I didn't think it would be this high. And Ivan Herrera, same thing. I didn't think he was going to be batting 381 at this point in the season. Again, the injury certainly has something to do with that. So while some of them I expect to come back to the pack, I would also expect, to T-Bone's point, Mason Wynn to bat better than 230. Jordan Walker at some point to bet more than 205. Wilson Contreras certainly above 195, which is where he's at so far this year. So you should have some guys coming up while other guys are having that rubber band effect back down to earth, the regression. I think the Cardinals offense is just good, man. Just a good offense. Probably not top 5, maybe hovering around the top 10, and that's more than good enough this season. And it really becomes a question of, what do you get out of the pitching side of things? It's been solid so far from the rotation. This bullpen just has got to improve. If they are able to, I don't think this is a team that's going to contend this season, but it could hover right around 500, and that could be, worthwhile games worth monitoring down the stretch.
And maybe it's not just the 500 mark. Like, it might be the part that saves them from having a huge sell-off, right?
Could be.
And maybe it doesn't bring back fans this year. That's how you start to build the good graces for potentially next year. We've talked about this before. Look, I don't think you're getting fans back in the stands this year. It's typically kind of a delayed effect before you really see that. But if you can be competitive enough to kind of hold on to some of these pieces, then it kind of changes a little bit of the outlook of what you do in the offseason. There's a chance you can get butts back in the seat by 2026. Problem is, if you're going to continue to stick with this bullpen, you're not going to be a team that's going to be in it. And we're going to be looking at this going, man, that was a giant what if, and instead they had to sell off a bunch of pieces come July.
He's T-Bone, that's Alex, I'm BK. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Coming up in 15 minutes. How many of the Blues' issues in this series can be traced back to the Dylan Holloway injury? Is it all of them? We'll get into that in 15 minutes. More likely to happen is next year on BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario to talk about classic air care. When it comes to your HVAC system, now is the time you're starting to use it a lot more. You've clicked on the air, you've kept it on, and that older unit has started to make some odd noises. It might be time to buy a new one, and you're thinking, oh, geez, I don't have that type of money. This is where classic air care comes into play. They've got financing options available for you. Plus, in the month of April, they have a deal going to where if you purchase a new HVAC system, they throw the furnace in for free. And when it comes down to it, they're always expensive, but when you get classic air care, you get the knowledgeable technicians that come out, that walk through your home, that point out certain areas of your HVAC system that are fine, to where you could still use those, and other areas that do need to be upgraded. And that's how they make sure you're getting the best deal over at Classic Air Care. I've been using them since 2016. I purchased a new HVAC system last year, and on top of that, they've helped me maintain old units thanks to their maintenance agreement. So give them a call today. You can also schedule online. They've got an instant HVAC system quote. You answer 4 questions, and they're going to give you the price right there on the browser, and then you have the technician to come out and walk you through the entire process. Just tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. Classic Air Care, classicaircare.com. Ooh, hoo, hoo, hoo.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for more likely to happen. You guys give us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you which one is more likely. Let's start out with this, Alex. More likely to happen, the Blues win the next 2 or the Winnipeg Jets win the next 2 in this series?
I'll say Blues win the next 2 because I don't think Winnipeg's just going to go straight sweep against St. Louis. They're going to get at least 1 win. And 1 win, if it comes on Thursday, can provide a little bit more confidence going into Sunday. So I'll say more likely that the Blues win the next 2.
I'll say more likely the Jets win the next 2. I don't know if I do believe the Blues will get 1 in this series, but I don't know if they're winning 2 straight here at home. The Jets just have really shut them down at 5-on-5. So that makes me think more likely that we will see the Jets just complete the full sweep.
Alex, what would you say Bennington's record is at home?
He is 10-0 since the 4 Nations break, Brandon Kiley. He has not lost a game since they returned from the break.
And what'd you say Connor Hellebuck has done on the road?
He is .500 with an .895 save percentage on the road since the 4 Nations break, Brandon.
Well, that's pretty interesting, Alex.
Skaboom! That's right.
I think it's more likely the Jets win the next 2. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service
Threw paper
text
towels
line
at him.
for more likely to happen. Alex, what do you got for us?
Okay, more likely to happen. The Blues put 4 up on Connor Hellebuck or Jordan Binnington pitches a shutout.
I think it is more likely. Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it is, because you got to pick one path, boys. T-Bone's probably going to say none of them because he's a jerk.
I think it is more likely that they end up putting. And we're talking about game 3, right?
Yeah.
I think that is more likely they put 4 up on Connor Hellebuck. I do think they have something on him. I don't know if it's like the end-all, be-all. I think they could put 3 up on him. That's not crazy. And then maybe they get the empty netter as the game
It's not 4 on Hellebuck. That's only 3 on Hellebuck with an empty netter.
Okay, well, they score 4 goals.
You have a noob.
So I'm going to go for it.
Bot. So 4 on Hellebuck or Benner post a shutout?
Yeah, in game 3.
I will lean towards Benner post a shutout. I don't know if you're beating Hellebuck 4 times. because I could see the whole like 3 goals get an empty netter
empty
scenario.
netter.
Dude, better. This is the thing. Like we had the segment earlier of how do the Blues get back in this, and to me it is they win the special teams battle. And Benner's just awesome. Benner's been great in this series. Yeah. It's not like I've got any questions about him. Yep. There's not one goal I've looked at and went, oh, Benner, you should have had that one. So I'll say more likely that Binnington ends up posting a shutout.
That's where I'm at as well. I think that shutout comes in game number 3.
Guys, more likely to be Ivan Herrera's backup when he returns. Pedro Pajes or Pozo?
Yeah, it's Pajes.
It's Pajes.
Ew, how lame.
I don't think this one's even close.
Come on, man. You guys just told me that Pozo's old.
I know,
you go
but
with
he
the younger
hits.
guy. So does Pajes.
No, I just looked at this just to make sure that like my memory was right. Pajes is 17% below league average right now.
But he was fine once Herrera went down. It's just because he's got the pressure of Pozo on him.
I want to see Pozo still here.
Of course you do.
Yeah, I mean,
Did you just add an extra hose in there? You said Pozo in there.
Because it's I got it.
don't try to explain it or excuse it.
Just ignore it.
That's all right.
Ignore it, T-Bone.
I still want him here. I'm getting a jersey.
There have been 11 hard hit balls in the game today against Michaelis and Elder. How many of them do you think resulted in a hit? 11 hard hit balls. 4.
I feel like both have been moving pretty well, so I'll say 3.
4. It's crazy. This is a weird game that's been played so far. Cardinals up 1-0 in the top of the fifth inning against the Atlanta Braves. By the way, we'll have a full breakdown of today's game, of this series, coming up today on the Redbird Report. You can check that out on your podcast page, wherever you find your podcast, or 101ESPN.com, YouTube.com/101ESPN STL. And there is a new Last Minute Blues podcast that's out, previewing tomorrow's Game 3, previewing as the Blues come back home. You can check that out as well, YouTube.com/101ESPN STL or 101 ESPN app.
All right. Good-looking podcast is what it is.
Not as good looking as the Redbird Report.
You're right. We have a 6 setup.
We've got a new studio.
Good for you, man. Good for you, man. Good for you, man. We've got a lot of downloads.
Yeah, there you go.
We can't compete with that one.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You guys give us 2 scenarios. We'll tell you which one's more likely here on BK and Ferrario.
Love you, buddy.
I love you too, man. More likely to happen. The cast of this show would star in a thriller or action movie. Much more likely a thriller. Have you seen the three of us?
I mean,
not exactly action figures.
I do look good, though, when I take my shirt off.
Same. I imagine me doing the Tom Cruise run.
Oh, man, imagine us doing a volleyball scene.
Volleyball scene?
No, like in Top Gun.
T-Bone's 5'2".
I was like, where's that coming from?
Two of us have dad bods at this point in our life. Like, no, it's not happening.
Whoa! Look, the 6-pack has become a 2-pack, but at least there's something there.
It's fine. It is what it is, all right?
Yeah, it'd be a thriller. Who would die first in the thriller?
Somebody on the text?
Big nose over there.
Probably me. I would say something that pisses somebody off and I'd be gone.
Yeah, I think it's actually possible we'd kill him.
I was going to say, BK's not going to get killed by the serial killer. We're going to sacrifice him.
It'd be Lord of the Flies, and you guys would be eating my body by the... Spoiler alert, I apologize.
No, you're too bony, man. You get too much soy in your diet.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line.
T-bone.
For more likely to happen. More likely to play their backup goalie in this series, the Blues or the Jets? Neither.
We'll say the Jets because they're up 3-0 and they say we need to give Hellebuck a break.
More likely to happen, the Blues sign Mitch Marner or Brock Besser this offseason?
Ooh.
Did you just say ooh?
Also, I said ew. Also, neither. But if I were to lean one, I'd say Besser over Marner.
I agree.
Cheaper and plays that top right wing with Thomas and Buchnevich.
Also, man, seeing Dylan Holloway the way that he plays, the style that he plays, and what that's opened up for this team, there are some similarities there to Brock Besser and what he brings to the table as well.
He's a sniper. And I mean, like, when he scored his 40 goals, he was playing with Pettersson when he was at his best. Imagine putting Besser with Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich.
I don't think you need a winger. I don't think they're going to do this offseason. But if you were to make the case for it, I don't think it's hard to make the case for Brock Besser, honestly.
The only way, and this we can get into once we hit the offseason, the only way that I could see that happening is if they really want a defenseman upgrade and they trade one of their current wingers to go get a defenseman and then sign Brock Besser to be that winger that adds into whoever they gave up to get him.
Like Besser, Thomas, Buch on that top line. We know it's Shin, Holloway, and Kyrou, and then you'd have like One of, probably.
So who's he training, Bolduc or Snuggerud?
Bolduc or Neighbors. Two of those three. And then Dalibor Dvorsky probably at the center.
Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of bodies right now, which is why I really wonder if they look at this and say, we've got a ton of assets. We may not need all of these. Let's go get ourselves a stud defenseman, and we can go into free agency and maybe sign a guy that comes in.
I'm going to ask the follow-up question. That is not what I would typically ask here. Not who would you want to move most out of Snuggerud, Bolduc, and Neighbors. Who do you think holds the most value out of Snuggerud, Bolduc, and Neighbors?
Bolduc probably, because he's a goal scorer and
Over Snuggie?
just because he's got an extra year on that entry level deal. Because Snuggie burned already one of them this year, and I believe, well, no, I guess both would have two.
well.
Yeah.
Both would have two.
I think Snuggerud carries the most value.
I think so too.
I think Bolduc does because he's played longer.
I think Bolduc carries most value of the guys that are willing to trade. Not that he has the most on of that group of three that you just said. To me, that's obviously Snuggerud. I just think Snuggerud's going to be in the do not trade category.
There's one more year of control on Snuggerud, by the way. Snuggie has 2 years after this year prior to RFA.
I guess last year Bolduc already burned a year.
Has one more year after this season.
Yeah, so I guess it would be Snuggie.
I think Snuggie has I would say the value for other teams would go Snuggerud, Neighbors, Bolduc. And part of that is because Neighbors already has that extension locked in.
Yeah, and he plays a physical brand.
Yeah.
But I think you were to flip that, I think it would be Bolduc, Neighbors, Snuggerud in terms of the Blues front office looking at it and say, who's the one that we could trade?
I think that's probably the case. The reason why I asked is just because, like, if you were to do that, I would be interested to find out what other teams.
I also wonder,
and to give you for
people
those.
don't like the conversation, and I just bring it up. I wonder if they would look at it too as like maybe a Kyrou, because Bolduc and Holloway and Snuggerud and all these guys, like, this is going to be the really fascinating part of the offseason of what Doug Armstrong and company look at. They've got a lot of bodies. What do they do with it?
He's Alex, this T-Bone. I'm BK. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll dive into the junk drawer. But coming up next, how much of the Blue struggles, speaking of Dylan Holloway, can be traced directly back to his injury? Or is it something bigger than that? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals currently in action taking on the Atlanta Braves as they lead 1-0 in the home half of the fifth. Miles Michaelis is on the mound for St. Louis. We'll keep you updated on the Cardinals game throughout the day today here on 101 ESPN. And the Blues back in action tomorrow night. Game 3 of their best-of-7 series against the Winnipeg Jets as they trail 2-0. We'll have pregame coverage starting tomorrow night at 7:30 with Alex Ferrario. Puck drop at 8:30 with Chris Kerber and Joey Vitale. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So, Alex, yesterday I was in the car and I was listening to the Fast Lane on my way home. And Jamie said something that we had briefly discussed yesterday, but I thought, honestly, they did a better job than what I did presenting the information. That's on me, certainly not on you, Alex. But Stalter asked the question, hey, how much of what we're seeing right now is just a direct result of Dylan Holloway being out of the lineup? And here's Jamie's answer to that question.
Do you think it's just Holloway?
I think it's just Holloway.
So you think that Holloway is a missing piece for Thomas, Buchnevich, Neighbors, Snuggie, everybody playing better?
Hear me out.
Okay.
If we go back to just hypothetical world here, Holloway's not hurt. Go back to Neighbors, Thomas, Buch, Holloway, Shen, Kyrou, have Bolduc, Sonny, Snuggerud, and then your WTF line. That right there is 3 lines that can score. And all you did is add one piece. And right now, because that one piece is missing, you're force-feeding players into certain situations where they may not be equipped to play. So for me, the missing piece that brings it all back together is Dylan Holloway.
Alex, I think I agree with him to an extent. I don't know that it's like everything. I think you might still be down in this series 2-0 with Dylan Holloway, but I think he would absolutely give you a chance. And it's entirely possible they win one of the first 2 games, if not both of them, if Holloway's on the ice. I don't want to diminish any of that because you know how big of a fan I am of Dylan Holloway and how much that impacted my personal belief in the Blues leading into this series. The reason that I'm not going all the way there is because I think some of this is also like Thomas not at 100%.
Yeah.
Parayko is not even close to 100% right now. And that's also a pretty significant factor in how they're scoring their goals, the Winnipeg Jets right now. So that's part of it as well. But to add to his point, Alex, I did a deep dive on that Shen, Kyrou, Holloway line. What they were able to do with Holloway versus what the Shen and Kyrou line has done since Holloway's injury. And then I honed in on what Shen and Kyrou have done exclusively in the time without, right? So since Holloway went down. Shen and Kyrou with Holloway this season. 55% of the shots at 5-on-5 were in favor of the Blues. They outscored the opposition with those 3, Shen, Kyrou, and Holloway on the ice, 29-14 this year. More than doubled the opposition, 29-14 when they were on the ice. Nothing about that was fluky. The expected goals are basically the same. And if you look at the high danger chances, which is something the Blues have really struggled to produce so far in this series, 91-62, 60% of the high danger chances at 5-on-5 when that line is on the ice, came in favor of the St. Louis Blues. Now, Kyrou and Shen this year, without Dylan Holloway on the ice, this is for the entirety of the season. There was a point in time early on where they were without him, and then certainly after that they were as well. High danger chances are in favor of the opposition 38-17. They have been outscored 10-6.
Ooh.
Only 44% of the shots are in favor of the Blues. They've been outshot 86-67 when they're on the ice. And the expected goals, again, nothing about this is fluky. Says it should be 8-5 based on the quality of the shots that are produced. Okay. What has it been for Shen and Kyrou since Holloway went down with the injury? What has that line done for you?
Oh, I can tell
Ready
you not
for this?
that much.
There have been different players that have been on that line. And it's worth noting for a couple of games, Kyrou bumped up with the Thomas line, so I'm not including those games in any of these numbers. Since Holloway went down with injury, the Shen and Kyrou line has been outshot 16-10 at 5-on-5. They have not scored a single goal at 5-on-5. They have allowed 1. They have 1 high danger chance. 1 in 5 games. They've played 5 games and they have 1 high danger chance at 5-on-5. They have allowed 14. So do I think that the series would be different if Dylan Holloway was on the ice? You bet your ass it would be. Because suddenly, what was your best line once again reemerges, and now it's become your least productive line on the ice at 5-on-5.
Not just the least productive line, but a defensive liability. Like, think of those high danger scoring chances you were just talking about. Like, we've talked a lot about how good Jordan Kyrou has been this year defensively and how he's changed his game when you look at his plus minus. I think that tells you that Dylan Holloway has been a massive impact on this. Here's why I don't think it's just Dylan Holloway, though. I mean, those numbers are alarming and goes to show you that, yeah, Dylan Holloway is a massive chess piece. Like, that's taking the queen off of the board in chess. Like, you've lost everything. But I also could argue, like, the top line has stayed the same. Like, Neighbors, Thomas, and Buchnevich were together for the longest time, and that was the same line that was working well when you had Holloway in the lineup and when you didn't have Holloway in the lineup. You went with Joseph, Sundqvist, and Bolduc. That was the line that I remember people were saying, well, you can't take Joseph out of the lineup when Snuggerud comes to the NHL. He's playing so well. Well, then why did that all of a sudden drop off? I think a lot of this is Dylan Holloway because you don't have that 100%. Threat to roll 4 lines. But I'd also look at what Jake Neighbors just told the media a little bit ago. In terms of getting to the net front presence, he said, you've got to have the will and the compete to work around your check and to get around the dirty areas. They've got good D-men that are strong and try to hold you to the outside. It's no excuse. I do think a lot of this is just on the other players. Like, when you lose a Dylan Holloway, that means you've got to step your game up to the next level. You can't replace Dylan Holloway. Nobody plays to the style that he is. But you've got guys that have had success this season before Holloway, Schenn, and Kyrou were on a line together. But I also, like, if we're going this, like, slice of the pie of what's happened, 75% of this, in my opinion, is Dylan Holloway.
I agree.
The other 25% is the injuries to Colton Parayko and Robert Thomas. Guys, there's one line that's been beating you, and it's been the Scheifele and Kyle Connor line. Guess who matched up with them? It's the Robert Thomas line. Go back and watch that game 1 and game 2, the play behind the net that has led to the goal scored in the third period. I have followed to tie it up, and then Kyle Connor to take the lead in game number 2. Cam Fowler has joined in on that one-on-one board battle to support Robert Thomas to win that puck battle. That doesn't typically happen. Thomas wins that battle one-on-one, and you don't abandon the front of the net. But they need support. Colton Parayko played 19 minutes in game 2. These are games he's playing 24, 25 minutes. But if you go back and listen to the radio broadcast, because they do an incredible job with the on-ice audio, Parayko is shouting for Fowler or Bennington to, hey, play that puck, play that puck. He's not the same guy. So, yes, you don't have Dylan Holloway, but in my opinion, you don't even have 75% of Parayko. You don't even have 75% Robert Thomas. You might be below 50% of both of those guys. It's why Scheifele and Connor have had so much success in this series. Your other lines have done a really good job of keeping Nemesnikov's line out of this one, the fourth line out of this one, Adam Lowry out of this one. It's come down to Connor and Scheifele, and you haven't been getting the same Pavel Buchnevich, and Robert Thomas isn't 100%, and your top pair defensively have not played well.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. The praise coming in from all different directions. Big Dad, Booty Daddy. Oh. I'll take the opinion of the former NHL player. From the 573, you just can't stand to admit that you might be wrong, BK. From the 636, BK, go the bleep back to KC with your ego. You don't know bleep. And then from the 314, you bleeping knuckleheads. You think you know more about hockey than Jamie? You make it very hard to listen to this program. No, I'm not suggesting that at all. In fact, 95% of what I just said was in full support of Jamie Rivers' point. I was just trying to add additional context to it. That was my point. Dylan Holloway's injury was massive for the Blues, and honestly, it's hard to overstate the importance of him being on the ice. If ever there was a moment, like if I'm his agent right now, I'm taking these numbers to Doug Armstrong this offseason during the contract negotiation period and saying, hey, look at how important my dude is for your team. You want the best version of Jordan Kyrou? You better keep this guy around because he is what allows for that to be the case. So I was just simply saying, I think it goes a little bit beyond just the Holloway thing. Holloway, to Alex's point, probably 75% of why the offense has dissolved over the last 7 games. But part of what's led to the issues in your own end is I think, pretty clearly the injuries as well to Thomas and Parayko. So I can't just say everything that has gone wrong for the Blues in this series is exclusively related to Dylan Holloway, and everything would be good for the Blues if he was on the ice. Because I don't feel that way. Thomas is not at 100%, and that guy means so much to what you do defensively. And Parayko, I just thought he was going to look more healthy than this when he came back, and he just doesn't. He doesn't look right.
Well, and I would say this to Big Bad Booty Daddy on our text line, but even like I actually just wanted to say that, so thank you for putting that name on your text. Even if Dylan Holloway was healthy, Robert Thomas's line is still matching up against Mark Scheifele's line. And I think we're still talking about the same situations to where Connor and Scheifele have beaten you. If this was a series right now that we'd be talking about Nemesnikov beating you or Cole Perfetti beating you or Adam Lowry beating you, then yeah, we'd be talking a lot more about, man, you just don't have the depth. You don't have the depth in terms to sustain offensive zone time, which is why a massive chunk of this series has been not having Dylan Holloway. But Parayko is going out there every single time that the Scheifele line steps over the board. Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich have been going out there every single time that line steps over the board. They don't have an answer for that line. And that's why I can't say it's all on Holloway, because I do see the injuries to Colton Parayko and Robert Thomas, and I see the impact that that's having on the way that they're having to play in these games when that top line's out there.
All right, we did get this question. I think it's a fair one from the 314. Guys, why not play the Shin line against the Jets top line then? This is something that I'm going to be really monitoring in game number 3. It's something I want to talk about with you more extended tomorrow on the show, Alex, when we're out at Enterprise Center. I will be fascinated to see how they decide to dictate those matchups.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a case to be made, hey, we're just going to put our best offensive line against their best offensive line and see who ultimately controls the offense at 5-on-5. And they could make the case, the Blues could, their best offensive line at least should be the Shin and Kyrou line. It hasn't been, obviously. I just gave you those numbers. They've been horrific. They outchanced high danger-wise 14-1 since the Holloway injury. So they have not produced that way, but they should be based on the talent. My concern about putting the Kyrou and Shin line out there against Connor and Scheifele, man, that is just a lot to ask defensively out of Kyrou. If you have a second of losing Kyle Connor in space, that's enough. That's enough for him to get that shot. We saw it in the last game off of the faceoff. Set play, design play. Scheifele goes behind the net. He gets the puck, circles it around to Kyle Connor right in front of the net. Boom, goal. Like, I think the best line to prevent that from happening is still the Thomas line, even with him hurt. So I will be curious to see how they match up those middle six, but I think they probably still go with Thomas against that Scheifele line.
I don't actually. We can do this deeper tomorrow, but this was the quote from Jim Montgomery a little bit ago. We have to be harder on Connor and Scheifele. They've scored the winning goal both nights. They're making plays down low on us. Yes, we have to be harder. When you look at the line of Thomas, Buchnevich, and Snuggerer, does that scream they can play hard?
No.
I think what it means is you're going to see Shen, Neighbors, and Kyrou go up against them, or you're going to see the WTF line go up against them.
Oh, that I don't want. No, please.
Here's the thing, man.
My reaction to that would be WTF.
Dude, we did a segment on how good they had been in terms of keeping the puck in the offensive zone towards the end of the regular season.
Sure. That has not shown up in the playoffs for what it's worth.
I think it's because you've been trying to use different matches out there. Like you've been using that Robert Thomas one. If you're going to try and play that line harder, you've got to start putting some physicality on those guys. I can get behind
the Shin line. I can go there with it. I cannot go there with the WTF line. I could argue
the WTF line has been a little bit better in the stretch run of the Four Nations. Like we're going off of 2 playoff games of how they've looked. I can argue from the Four Nations break on, WTF line has been up there with Holloway, Shen, and Kyrou in terms of offensive zone time and puck possession. Plus they finish checks. If they're going to try and be physical on that line, you've got 2 options.
I would just really worry about potential issues in your own zone with those guys. Getting out, like the breakouts with the WTF line on the ice, because you're going to get stuck in your own zone at times.
Well, but what could happen is you can see what Jim Montgomery typically does. If it's a defensive zone face-off, you put 2 centermen out there. You put a Thomas or a Sundqvist out there with that WTF line, and then as soon as they win the face-off, you push him over the boards, and then you get the winger back out there as they push the puck north.
I get the idea of it in theory. Like you're just trying to... The body blows. I think we're at a point in the series where you can't go for body blows anymore.
Yeah.
This is now about you got to win, man. So if you were going to do that, if you were on home ice in game 1 and 2, I could get kind of the idea behind it. Is you're trying to these are going to pay off when we get to game 3, 4, 5, 6 of the series. Going into game 3, you get your best dudes against their best dudes and see how it works. And really, the obvious answer is Thomas. But if he's not at 100%, then it becomes difficult to.
I think they're going to look for matches to where they can get Thomas and Buchnevich ideal matchups to where, I think they're going to try and get the Thomas line out there against that Nemesnikov line to see if they can spark a little bit more offense for those top players.
All right, so I did look something else up, Alex, because you did some homework last night on teams that came back from a 2-0 series lead, and then you forgot to write it down.
And again, in fairness, I did it at 10:30. May have been some seltzers involved, but I did find some good stats.
Man,
I know.
Bring it up on air.
What he does,
right. Go back to Casey.
What he does is he opens up the passenger door, he shoves you out, and then backs up over it.
No, I mean, you did really great work. You just didn't write it down anywhere.
God, he just rolled back over me and then went forward again.
Like
you want to go reverse one more time?
Because you didn't write it down. I feel like you didn't do work,
Probably. Didn't do any research.
Non-COVID season, so I'm excluding the bubble year and then 2021 as well because they were just weird, right? Non-COVID last 5 postseasons, 24, 23, 22, 19, and 18. Those are the last 5 non-COVID postseasons. We have seen 6 teams come back from down 2-0 in the playoffs. We saw this last year in the first round. The Stars did it against Vegas. Vegas went up 2-0 on the road. Dallas came back to win games 3, 4, and 5, and then they won it in 7. They won those games 3-2 in overtime, 4-2, and 3-2. Mostly a defensive battle. That game 3 was really important, obviously, and they were able to find a way to win that in overtime. It's noteworthy because it kind of becomes a theme here. 2023, we saw this in the first round, the Rangers versus the Devils. The Rangers went up 2-0 on the road. Devils came back to win games 3, 4, and 5, won the series in 7, including winning game 3, 2-1 in overtime. 2022, the Lightning versus the Rangers. This is the Eastern Conference Finals. Rangers once again involved. They go up 2-0 at home. Lightning win games 2-6. Boom, series over. Lightning were just the better team in that one. Rangers versus the Hurricanes, that exact same postseason, involved in this again. Hurricanes go up 2-0 at home. Rangers end up winning games 3 and 4. Win it in 7. They won game 3, 3-1. 2019, Hurricanes versus Capitals. Capitals go up 2-0 at home. Hurricanes end up winning game 3 and 4, win it in 7. And then the Capitals versus the Blue Jackets in 2018 as well. Blue Jackets went up 2-0 on the road. Capitals won games 3-6, win the series in 6 games. Alex, a lot of these teams that ended up winning it were favored going in. Like the Stars last year were a slight favorite going up against Vegas. The Blues were a pretty significant underdog in this series. So that is one key difference going into this thing. But if you're looking for precedent, there is plenty of it. And a lot of them, almost all of them, 1-goal games in game number 3 that ended up going in favor of the team that found a way to win the series.
You're either going to have to win this in overtime in a tie hockey game, or you're going to have to get the shutout from Jordan Binnington. But that's, to me, what game 3s are. They're not blow you out of the water games. Although, if you remember in 2019 when Winnipeg came back in game number 1, I think they beat the Blues like 6-2 in that game. So sometimes it can happen. But in this game, in this series, this is going to have to be a Jordan Binnington show to pull you back into the fight. Because when you do that, then the other side starts to think, it's like, oh, man, maybe we just were good on home ice, and then how do we get past Jordan Binnington? Because I can promise you, those players, Binnington's in those players' heads. Kyle Connors specifically. I know he scored 2 goals, but, man.
If he wouldn't have scored that final goal, the way that he was talking after the game, you could tell he was starting to get in his own head, and then finally it cleared.
Yeah, and he got through, and that's the biggest thing. But, man, at some point, players start to get into their own heads of like, man, how am I going to beat this guy? So that's typically what needs to happen to pull you back into the fight of a series when you're down 2-0. And again, like the trends I was looking at, we've got Pronger on tomorrow, and I was looking at the 07-08 Anaheim Ducks team. I was looking at 13-14 when he was with the Philadelphia Flyers. And game 3, when they were down 2-0, they were typically shutouts or they were overtime victories. They're low scoring, and you're going to have to find a way to crack through.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. The Junk Drawer is coming up next here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Let's dive into the junk drawer. Alex, what do you got for us today?
So, guys, I had a squirrel problem over these last couple of days. We think we had one up in our attic. Katie heard some noises. The last time we had this, I sent you the picture. It got up there, it got stuck, and it died. And it was an easy clear out for me because I was like, all right, cool. So I went up, grabbed it, panicked a little bit, but luckily got it out of the house.
Like my birds that were living in the attic for a while.
Yeah, kind of. I don't do birds either, but I really don't do pests like animals. So anyway, squirrel's up there, and it's alive. And I don't do alive things because I told Katie I could go up there and set the trap, but here's what's going to happen. That thing's going to run at me. I'm going to fall through the ceiling, probably break a bone. Now we're talking tens of thousands of dollars. So a company that did some work with my dad's pest control company in the past, I called them up. Comes out, explains to Katie, because she was home in the morning when I was at work, here's what we're going to do. He basically puts the trap up where he thinks the entrance is, and you'll catch him. He'll come out to the next day, and he'll come out and they'll take the squirrel away. Cool. Katie calls me 3 hours after he shows up and sets the trap and says they caught the squirrel. I'm like, hell yeah, we got the squirrel. Katie is almost in tears.
What?
She's like, it's just sitting in the cage. She's like, can you come out and take this squirrel? Can you get it? Like, let it free? She's like, I don't want it to sit in this cage. And I said, well, no, he's not going to come. He'll come out tomorrow and he'll get the squirrel and he'll take it. And so she, upset, doesn't like animal cruelty at all. She calls the guy and goes, yeah, the squirrel's caught. Can you come out and get him, please? And the guy that had done the squirrel removal for us, he goes, don't worry, he's going to die in a couple of hours anyway.
Oh, no.
He said once they get trapped, they panic, they got anxiety, and then they just die. So Katie kept going out there every hour, and she would check. She's like, it's still alive. It's still alive. It's still alive. This thing was alive probably until about 11 o'clock that night, and then finally went kaput. And so now she's like, well, I don't want any more traps. She goes, I don't want to be cruel to the squirrels. And I go, I don't know what you're talking about, but I want those squirrels out of my attic. So I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Animal cruelty is just going to have to happen to get rid of the squirrel.
It's not cruel. This is like
I was
most humane thing you can do.
They got him in the cage. It got stuck. It panicked, and it died. That's what took place. I need to understand, though, that my wife doesn't like this because a couple of years ago when I had the moles, caught one, and I didn't want it to dig back into the ground. So, I made sure that thing wasn't going back into my ground. You kind of catch my drift. And I went and showed my wife. I said, Katie, look, I got it. Cried on that one too, and I'm like, it's a mole. So
I
now
feel like
know.
you probably should have learned your lesson at that point.
Well,
just tell Katie, hey, go
I had
somewhere
no
else
control
for the
over this
day.
squirrel. This squirrel was up there, and I wasn't going to release it because it knew where my attic was.
Was there anything that you could have done to get the squirrel outside of your house?
What do you mean?
Like, it's in the trap, right?
Yeah, no, it was in the trap outside of my house. Like, it's up on my roof.
Oh, well, I mean, I don't know what
It
you were
was
supposed to
enjoying
do
the
in that
weather,
spot.
right?
Yeah,
Well,
it is what it is. Could you have just let it go?
Well, no, because it was going to go right back into the attic. It knew where my attic was.
Oh, cover it up, man.
I'm not doing that. I don't know how to do that.
Go for a long drive with the squirrel in the passenger
Well, technically, somebody did do that. The professional went on a long drive with him. It's just it didn't make it that long.
Coming up in 15 minutes, how can the Blues maximize their offensive output from all three lines? We'll get into that in 15 minutes. But next, the Cardinals are not doing super well offensively today, but the storyline is actually the pitching side of things. We'll tell you about it, and an interesting decision from Ollie Marmol that I want to get into coming up next year on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario with you to tell you about my friends out at Rhino Shield. When it comes to the exterior of your home, you can trust Rhino Shield's work. Darren, the owner over at Rhino Shield, sent me a message that one of his customers who bought a house back in 1974 from the Anheuser-Busch family, who had it built in the late 1920s in Sunset Hills, an older house, and he said it needed a new look. And so they called Rhino Shield. They trusted them with Rhino Shield's work, and Rhino Shield comes out. They sandblasted the home. They repainted it with their ceramic coating, and now it looks brand new with this old school home thanks to Rhino Shield. Whatever surface you might have, Rhino Shield sticks to it. Aluminum, block, wood, cedar, asbestos, brick. It's a ceramic coating that sticks 8 to 10 times thicker than any paint you're going to buy over the hardware store. It's also 100% waterproof. It deflects 90% of the UV rays. You can trust Rhino Shield thanks to its 25-year transferable warranty. So give them a call today. Schedule online. Just tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. 877-25-RHINO, 877-25RHINO.com.
Was this a BKO? Does
Absolutely.
it qualify? I said going into break, pitching is the story of the game. Ollie just went to just made an interesting decision, and then that interesting decision immediately implodes. Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Implode is probably a little too strong.
Well,
he gave up one run.
Give it time.
Cardinals were up 1-0 in the bottom of the 7th inning. Credit where it is due. Miles Michaelis, it wasn't like some gem or anything. He didn't strike out the world, but it was a really solid Miles Michaelis outing. Goes 6 innings, does not allow a run, 2 strikeouts over the course of the day. Just looked really solid overall. So now you're into the 7th inning. You're ready to go to your bullpen. Miles Michaelis has thrown 90 pitches, and you don't want him seeing this lineup another time. So they decide to go to John King. Makes sense. They've got a couple of lefties at the bottom of the order. You've got Michael Harris II coming up at the top of the order. Going to a lefty there, more than fine. What was surprising, Alex, is that they went to him over Jojo Romero, who had previously been their guy in these kinds of spots, especially legit leverage spot. Lefties coming up, Jojo's the guy you trust. Well, Jojo's been giving up everything. contact, walks. He's just not been very good to start out the season. So instead, they go to John King. John King has also not been great, but he's been better than JoJo. And what he does is strikeout, double, single, boom, game tied.
At least he got the strikeout. Started off hot.
So now you're going back to the bullpen, and Kyle Leahy is in the game. He strikes out Austin Riley on, I think it was 3 straight pitches. Now he's going to be going up against the heart of the order with Ozuna, Albies, and who else do they have coming up? Olsen. So this is where you want to use your best dude. T-Bone, you were talking about this during the break. Did you like the decision to go to John King in that spot? And if not, how would you have played this out if you were in Ollie's shoes?
Well, right now, I want to preference. I'm not 100% sure who's available just yet. But if you have Maton and Helsley available, I would have liked to have seen Leahy start this inning because it's clear that Leahy is available today. I thought Leahy wasn't available because you mentioned this during the commercial break. It would have been, what, 3? This is his 3rd straight. Now, I didn't throw a lot of pitches yesterday. But, okay, first off, I understand what he was probably thinking, which was, hey, Kelenic, Allen, Harris, that is 2 of 3 lefties.
I was going to say, you were going to lefty, right?
Problem is like, I could have told you the Braves are going to pinch hit with Fairchild for Kelenic. So now you've got right, left, and then all of a sudden you're back to the heart of the order there.
But do they go right? Olsen. But do they pinch hit if there's a righty on the mound?
No, probably not. You probably have either way. You've got to pick your poison. But my whole argument would be, I would still want to turn to my better bullpen arm while we're up 1-0 if Leahy's available. And if Maton was available, he'd then get the 8th, and then you'd have Helsley take the 9th inning. Part of this, the way he has played this out so far, makes me wonder if one of those 3, well, not one of those 3, we clearly know Leahy's available, he's pitching. One of Maton or Helsley's not available. And I think that's probably what guided this decision. That's why it's an interesting move. They clearly don't have a lefty they trust. Like we heard Ollie on another radio show yesterday. They talked about, hey, the move of Libby going to the pen. Now you've got JoJo and John King as your lefties. They clearly don't trust either one of those guys. And they're not getting good answers from either one of them right now.
Yeah. I think this is one of those situations where everybody's going to be critical of the manager for making a decision, and the reality is he just doesn't have a good decision to make. I think in an ideal world, it is what they've tried to script this thing out, typically, which is Leahy, Maton, and Helsley, boom, you're good to go. But there have been times where Maton blows up or Helsley blows up, and even when you script it outright, it ends up still not working out the way that you anticipate. I will be very curious to see who they go to in the 8th. I honestly don't know the answer. Like, if it ends up being Maton in the 8th and then Helsley comes out for the 9th inning and just all of them were available, I will wonder what the explanation is as to why he didn't go to Leahy to start out the inning.
My guess is one of them wasn't available, but they got in the situation and they said, we need you.
And my guess is, like, to that point, Leahy probably was available in need, but they would have preferred to stay away from him if possible. So you go to John King in that spot, hoping that you can stay away from Leahy, give him these 2 days off, and then you're able to go into Friday with him back to being refreshed. They pushed him pretty hard to start out the season. He's gone multiple innings a few different times. He did pitch the back-to-back. This is 3 straight days for him. So it is a lot, but he only threw 13 pitches on Monday, 7 pitches yesterday. It's not like he had this huge workload in this series. But that's the only thing that immediately comes to mind to me as to why you would play this out this way.
Someone texted in and said Fernandez is warming up.
Oh, that's fun.
So, yeah, somebody wasn't available.
Yeah,
which would say
my
Maton,
guess is
right?
Maton. My guess is Maton was the one that was unavailable. Because typically, to your point, like you just mentioned, like, hey, if Leahy was unavailable and, like, just in case of emergency, he would be available, Ollie still doesn't go to him there. Ollie typically will only go to the, hey, we will use this guy in emergency if it is like that is the last arm available in the pen.
Is this a spot where you go to Fernandez?
Hell no.
This is the spot I try and go to Leahy, but I mean, you had to get out of the previous positioning.
The problem, they don't have a good answer. I guess you have to.
Here's my thing. Like, why not consider Swanson here? Swanson is up, and you're playing with a 6-man bullpen right now. That's what's happening, is because they don't this is what happened last year at the beginning of the season with Fernandez, is they didn't find the spots to be able to get him into games because so many of the games were really tight. So you never found out. Like you were never able to get any information, good or bad, on, hey, can Fernandez be a contributor for this team? The answer was yes on Fernandez. Eventually, I think it was the first, 7 games of the season that we didn't see Fernandez last year. I'd have to go back and double check exactly how many it was, but it was more than you would want. And the same thing has been true for Swanson. I think he's entered 1 game since his call up to the big league level. I don't feel great about it. Don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm like sitting here, gotta go to Swanson. This is a spot. Love it. I definitely don't feel good about Fernandez going into the next inning.
Yeah, I don't think I'd continue to keep forcing this Ryan Fernandez thing in the high leverage situations because it just has not worked for you. But again, you have no other. If Maton's unavailable, which I would assume because you're going to Fernandez, but you have no left-handed options. Jojo Romero was a guy that you could use in this spot last year, to where he was a guy that could come in and shut things down late in the game. He was a guy to get you to Ryan Helsley. You don't have that anymore. Specifically from the left side, it's why not having Steven Matz in the bullpen is really hurting you, or Matthew Liberatore, who was a guy that you used last year.
And this is a spot where you need another lefty because you got Olson coming up, left-handed hitter, much better against righties as you'd expect.
Always is better against lefties, so that one makes it a little bit more
This year has been the opposite, though. This year, it's a small sample size, but so far this year, he's actually been much better against right-handed pitchers than left-handed pitchers. Take that of what you will. For his career, it's been the opposite, but that's how it's played out so far this season. And then you got another left-handed hitter coming up in Baldwin, and you just don't have the lefty. This is a terrible scenario for Ryan Fernandez. Yeah. Like if you're trying to get him right, this is brutal. It's also, to argue the other side, devil's advocate, it's also a really tough spot for a guy in Swanson who's just trying to crack it into the big leagues. Good luck, man. 1-1 game. Bottom of the 8th inning.
In other words, here's what I decided Ollie's thinking right now. Boy, I hope we score like 5 runs this inning.
Yeah.
Well, even then, you score 1, that's even tighter of a situation to be in.
If you're going to treat Swanson this way, you've got to make a move with the bullpen. You've got to get
Riley O'Brien. You got to go get Riley O'Brien.
I don't know who like Roycroft has apparently been really good. I know there's a limit. You got to wait like 15 days or whatever to be able to call him back up. But he's apparently been really good. Velocity's back up. He's at 98 miles an hour. The shape is back to what it was last year when he was pretty good for the Cardinals.
Riley O'Brien has not been good.
He imploded again?
7 innings. He's thrown.
Early on, he was not good, but I think lately he's been great.
I'll have to look at the game log then because, he's given up 3 earned runs, 1 home run, and 5 hits. Yeah, striking out guys and not walking guys, which is good.
I think he got off to a really slow start. Over the weekend, he had a great series. I have not looked this week to see how he's done.
Munoz was really good for you, and I understand, they want to keep him to where he's an option. You just didn't have those long leverage situations or those long outing situations. Munoz had the strikeout stuff. Riley O'Brien, if he's healthy and he's okay, has the strikeout stuff. You got to put different people into that bullpen.
O'Brien's basically had 1 bad game.
Okay.
He allowed 4 hits against Nashville, gave up 3 runs, 2 of them
And that was when he came back?
No, it was like middle of his season so far. But otherwise, he's allowed 1 earned run in 6 other appearances, and he's striking out the world. So he's been overall pretty darn good, and he had 1 blow-up outing. His ERA overall, though, is a 3.8. He's been pretty damn good.
I mean, those are guys that you should bring them up into the bullpen.
Strikeouts. 14 strikeouts in 7 innings.
But again, you're bringing in guys that don't really have experience in the high leverage situations, but you got to give them experience at some point to figure out what they can do.
They are in a bad spot with their bullpen right now, trying to navigate the 8th and the 9th inning. Cardinals tied with the Braves in the rubber match of this series, 1-1 in the top of the 8th. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, is going to join us in 15 minutes. But next, how can the Blues go about maximizing the offensive output? What does that mean for their line combinations? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Cardinals going to have another interesting decision here. They've got runners at first and second, 2 outs, top of the 8th inning. It's 1-1. You've got a situation in the bottom of the 8th where it sounds like, going to have to go to Ryan Fernandez. And this is one thing that, like, we were talking about the 7th inning, the decision there.
What happened, T-Bone?
John King opened up the 7th inning, and the question was, like, is this really the right call? You were going to have to pitch one of King or Fernandez in the 7th or the 8th inning. They lack other options right now. So if that was going to be the case, yeah, you going to King there is fine. It's not ideal, but it's fine. JoJo, King, Fernandez, 2 of those, or at least one of those 3, possibly 2 of those 3, we're going to have to pitch today in some capacity. So now you got 2 on, 2 out, top of the 8th inning. The Braves bring in this fire-breathing dragon.
It looks like it, too.
Who pitches a 4-seam and a slider 60% of the time in Hernandez.
Oh, I hope we don't have Walker up.
And coming up to the plate is the one and only Jordan Walker.
Oh.
I'd stick with him.
It was said before the game that Brendan Donovan, they would like to stay away from him, but he could be available by the end of the game for a pinch hit situation if needed. Would you guys have gone to him here?
I wouldn't have. I'd stick with Walker. Same situation while you stuck with Gorman yesterday.
If Donovan could play the field, yes. I just don't know if he's available to play the field. My gut tells me he's only good for an at-bat today. And because that, you don't have anybody else that can move out to the outfield, so you don't have an option. So you're probably stuck with Walker. And I know, again, this sticks to what I said in the first segment of I would have gone to Sajaci for Gorman last night in the 6th. If you're going to stick with Gorman on left bases loaded because it is we're giving runway, this is the right call then by Ollie Marmol if Donovan's available or not.
It's been the theme. The last week or so, they're saying, hey, young guys, go do it. Yep. We want to see you in these situations. How do you respond? What does it look like when your back's up against the wall and you strike out?
They didn't do it.
First and
it was a slider,
second.
too.
No, that wasn't a slider. That was a sinker.
Oh, it looked like the slider.
No, we should have pinch hit. I knew it.
No. These are the reps that these guys need to take.
Hey, man, this is part of it.
If Gorman would have struck out yesterday with the bases loaded, I would be saying the exact same thing.
By the way, just to be clear, Jordan Walker struck out 2 on, 2 out, top of the 8th, tie game 1-1.
I think we all understood.
And
making sure people at home that are listening but are not seeing what's going on, they might have. Yeah.
And one thing with Jordan Walker too is like right now he is sinking. Currently sinking here at the big league level once again, which is very, very alarming for the St. Louis Cardinals.
He was better yesterday, had a couple of walks in the game. Today so far, 0 for 4 with that strikeout that you just watched. His batting average has now dipped below 200 right now. So it's not looking great for Jordan Walker at the plate. Early on this year, I thought it looked a lot better. Just the numbers weren't necessarily dictating that it had been a significant improvement from a year ago. They looked similar, but just watching the games, it felt as though the eye was getting better. The at-bats looked more competitive. He looked more confident. And now it is starting to look a lot like it did a year ago, where it's the hip flying open again, the base isn't there. It's just.
But you know what? You're gonna have to figure this stuff out. If you're a part of the future, you're gonna have to figure this stuff out, and that's why I keep him in that situation. And look, you didn't come through, and you're starting to fall back down to where you were last year. How do you dig? Victor Scott's digging himself out of it. How do you dig yourself out of it?
100%. I think it is a more than fair way to look at it.
Oh,
all right.
By the way, real quick, sorry, just to cut you off. They will be turning 2 in the 8th inning.
Ryan Helsley.
No, he can't go 2 innings.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
JoJo Romero will be the guy that the Cardinals are deciding to go with for the 8th. They want to see if the lefty's going to prove
it.
it.
The text line was incorrect.
Well, he might have been warming up if that ended up continuing along. They probably did not want Leahy to throw more than like 15 or 20 pitches.
Yeah, that
makes
just because it was the 3rd straight day that he had thrown. If he needed more than that to be able to get out of the inning, they might have had to go back to somebody else. Yeah. Fernandez probably in that spot. Yeah, so now you've had John King to start out the 7th, JoJo Romero to start out the 8th. Your reward for starting out the 8th inning is Olsen, Albies, and Baldwin.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Good luck.
All right, Alex, on the blue side of things, Game 3 tomorrow night right here on 101 ESPN. We'll have full coverage. Beginning with our show tomorrow, we will be live at the Enterprise Center, so be sure to stay tuned for all of that. We'll try to get as many good interviews as we can from down there at Enterprise Center. Be there for Morningscape, give you all the latest information as we go along here. How can they maximize their offensive output? Because right now it feels as though the Blues they're having to rob Peter to pay Paul with this Dylan Holloway injury, and there's no clear answer on how you can construct these lines. What do you think the best version looks like?
Well, this is the hard part, too, because just like you mentioned, Rob Peter to pay Paul, you're looking for offense at 5-on-5, but you also need physicality on some of your lines, and that's why I think Neighbors is staying with Shen and Kyrou. I don't like that line. I don't think it plays well for Shen and Kyrou. I think Neighbors plays a specific style that likes to play below the goal line, and I'm not sure Shen and Kyrou play that style. This would be me, and people are going to probably hate this, but I would go Snuggerud, Thomas, Buchnevich, like they are. I would actually put Texier with Shen and Kyrou, and I would have Neighbors play with Sundqvist and Bolduc. Now, let me explain myself. When that Sundqvist, Bolduc, and Joseph line was playing well, there was a physical presence on the forecheck with Matthew Joseph. I don't think Texier is that. Texier is more of a shooter off of the rush, can get to open space. So I would like to see Neighbors with Sundqvist and Bolduc to hopefully create a lot of opportunities for Bolduc to get to open space. And Texier is another shooter that can play with speed. Montgomery was talking about how he can do some really good things with the offense. You put him with a Jordan Kyrou and a Braden Shen to see if you can spark some more offense for that line. That's what I would do. They're going the opposite of that. Neighbors with Shen and Kyrou. And I think some of this is because Shen's line is going to match up with Scheifele's line.
Makes some sense. Understand them going that direction. If they want to get more physical with that Scheifele line, that third line is really, to me, the one that has come unglued.
It's the difference maker. Because
Bolduc was so good for this team down the stretch, man. And I just don't know. I don't think you're having enough playmaking around him. And this is no shot against Sonny. He's been a good player for the Blues this year. Nobody expected him to play this prominent of a role for the Blues this season. Having Sonny as the center, and then whether it was Joseph or now with Texier, you're just lacking some of that playmaking to create space for Bolduc. And it's why I really would like to see them move Bolduc up a little bit more. I know he had a bad penalty in game one. It was the heat of the moment. He did a little too much in that spot. You can't allow them to get into your head. But otherwise, I feel like he's been fine in this series.
And, I wouldn't mind that either if you put Bolduc with Shen and Kyrou and then you move Neighbors and Texier down with Sundqvist. It's doing the same thing. You're serving the same purpose of now you've got a forechecker with a shooter. I just think the way that Dylan Holloway played, you've got to replicate it somehow. You have to have a guy who can play fast through the neutral zone, is a forechecker, but also creates that high-low matchup rather than cycling below the goal line. That's where Neighbors' expertise is, cycling below the goal line. It's why he's had success with Thomas and Buchnevich. I just don't know if you can do that right now with Shen and Kyrou.
Do you consider 11-7 again?
No, I don't. And mostly because, and I know why you probably did it, because you're favoring Colton Parayko a little bit to try and give him a little bit more assistance. You need offense at 5-on-5 if you're going to win this series. And I don't think Parayko, that's the other thing. If you want to maximize the offense, you've got to get your defensemen more involved in the offense, specifically off of the rush. But if Parayko can't do that, and Fowler's trying to do it, and Falk's trying to do it, and Broberg's trying to do it, you can't play this game against Winnipeg down one forward. So no, I would not. I would go 12 forwards, and that's why I would go Texier, because I just don't think Joseph has played to the level they need him to. Give Texier a shot. Heck, you might get a lot of what took place when Berube put Sammy Blais in the lineup in 2019 against the Dallas Stars. We all remember that game. Blais came in, and we were like, what the hell is he doing? And Blais enters, scores that slap shot goal from the blue line, and beats Ben Bishop. If Texier can provide you a little spark, and plus this dude's got fresh legs. This guy's played 3 games since the Four Nations break. Take advantage of some opportunities.
Blues off tonight, back in action tomorrow. Game 3 as the series comes here to St. Louis, and it'll be on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN tomorrow night. Alex will have pregame coverage tomorrow starting at 7:30, but we'll have full coverage right here on 101 ESPN. We'll be out there tomorrow at Enterprise Center for our show, 11 to 2, and then we'll have the puck drop for you right here on 101 ESPN tomorrow at 8:30. Another big spot for Ryan Fernandez. The Cardinals are tied with the Braves 1-1 in the bottom of the 8th inning. 1 out right now. They are bringing in Ryan Fernandez into this game after Jojo Romero led up 2 hits. One of them was an Ozzy Albies, just a dribbler to third base. There was no play to be made there by Nolan Arenado. And then they end up moving the runners over with a sacrifice bunt. So runners on second and third, 1 out. Ryan Fernandez enters the game in the bottom of the 8th inning, trying to keep this thing tied for the Cardinals to extend it to Ryan Helsley in the 9th. Here's a question for you guys. Would you consider Helsley here? They obviously will not, and I don't think should. but would you have considered Ryan Helsley to put out? It's basically the same thing that Ollie always says about the 10th inning, right? You need Helsley out there because you need a strikeout in that spot. Because of that run at second potentially scoring for you. You need to be able to get that first strikeout. Would you have considered Helsley in this spot to get the final 2 outs of the 8th and then figure out what to do with the bottom of the order coming up for the 9th?
Oh, boy.
I don't think I would. I understand why you're doing it, but you haven't been able to score runs, and even if you score in the top of the 9th, you have to go to somebody, and you're going to Ryan Fernandez in a big-time situation. I guess the difference is you're giving them potentially a clean inning so that you don't have to worry about guys at second and third, but I don't think I would.
I think I would, just because I think, this is the ball game in my opinion right here. I don't trust Fernandez. I trust Helsley. They would never do that, and I get the reason for
on
it.
the road, 8th inning closer who is in a traditional role, and the whole thing has been, hey, we're utilizing him in this role because it's going to help maintain his health.
Also, it's a day from a night game where there's little rest, and he pitched in the night game last night.
Through, I think, 20-some pitches
22
last
pitches.
night. Did not look particularly honed in with his stuff.
I still don't think I would. Look, Ryan Fernandez, you're here for a reason.
We'll see what he's able to do with it. Coming up next, we'll talk to Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues, here on 101 ESPN.
Hey, this is a message for all the homeowners out there, or maybe you're taking care of a parent's house, whatever it may be. When you need to get that air conditioner checked out, I want you to keep the folks of Classic Air Care in mind, and here's exactly why. They've come to my house twice. They have been fantastic. They've maintained the furnace part for the fall. They've taken care of the stuff for the spring. One of the easiest things you can do is you can change the air filter on a regular basis throughout the summer. Those windows may open up a bit in the spring. Make sure those air filters get changed. It's one of the best things you can do to help prevent any kind of catastrophic damage done to your air conditioning unit. Now, here's what I want you to keep them in mind. They got a 4.8 Google rating. Go to their website at classicaircare.com. Check out their Google ratings. Read what people are saying about them. You can tell the quality of service you get when you get thousands of people actually on there telling you how good the service is, and that's the service I experienced myself. The second reason is you want quality people coming into your home. They know how to service all the units. They have technicians with as many as 40 years of experience under their belt, and they know how to fix something if something goes wrong. And lastly, they offer you service plans so you can keep it out of mind, and they just make sure that they take care of your unit when it needs to be done. They've got same-day appointments available if you do need them and you're in an emergency. And they've also got an easy system online to book an appointment at ClassicAirCare.com. It's the service, it's the quality, and it is the reliability that you're getting when you're bringing them into your home. And that's why you call Classic Air Care. You can book an appointment online at ClassicAirCare.com. They've been making people comfortable since 1926.
Tanner Hendrickson here. The Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals currently trail the Atlanta Braves 4-1 in the top of the ninth inning as they gave up 3 runs in the home half of the eighth. Keep you updated on the Cardinals game throughout the day today here on 101 ESPN. And Game 3 of the Blues-Jet series tomorrow night. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 7:30 with Alex Ferrario. Then puck drop at 8:30 with the voice of the Blues, Chris Kerber. And Kerbs will join us next here on BK and Ferrario. The Sports Center is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK, mentioned before the break, Cardinals going to Ryan Fernandez to get them out of a big spot. 2 on in the bottom of the 8th inning. It was a 1-1 game. It is no longer a 1-1 game. It is now 4-1 in favor of the Braves. It went exactly as you'd think. It was a hanging slider right in the sweet spot. And yeah, Eli White hit his first home run of the season. The Braves are now up 4-1 in the top of the 9th inning.
It's a whiteout
Cardinals
in
down
Atlanta.
to their last couple of chances. Victor Scott at the plate. And we are going out right now to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by the voice of the Blues. He's Chris Kerber joining us here on BK and Ferrario. Kerbs, appreciate the time as always, man. Blues back in action tomorrow night, returning home. How would you say this series has gone relative to your expectations through the first couple of games?
You know what? I'd say pretty doggone close to them, to be honest with you. I think they've been close games. They've been tight games. I did not expect the Blues to have basically just one even-strength goal. So I think that one surprises me a little bit based on just the way they were trending over the last 25, 30 games of the regular season. But, you know, you're playing a number 1 team in the league. You're playing a team that had more points than any of the out of 32. They were number 1. And these games have been close. They've just edged you a little bit with their top-end guys, and that's the difference in how tight things are between 1 and 8 right now in the NHL.
Kerbs, on that even strength offensive struggles, I mean, I think a lot of people point to the injury of Dylan Holloway and say, look, without this guy, the offense has just floundered towards the end of the season. Do you feel like there's a fix for Jim Montgomery to get more from their offense?
I do. Listen, I mean, I think that's a fair point. I think that their most consistent forward all season long, I think, was Dylan Holloway. I don't think we can underestimate how big it is. You're missing some of the size. You're missing some of the speed. You're missing kind of the key ingredients, right, that Doug Armstrong said he was looking for in this retool, rebuild process, which was size and speed. and you're missing that. Now, I think Jimmy Snuggerud has looked just fine coming in. But, you know, in the end, I think, again, for the most part, guys have played pretty well. The difference is you just had a couple of lapses on the one end, and their top line has beat your top line. So, to me, the most intriguing thing about tomorrow night's game is going to be with Jim Montgomery having the last line change. Does he look for a different matchup? Does he try a different matchup? And does that matchup change what we just talked about in terms of some of the 5-on-5 chances, some of the offense, and kind of give you a little more balance that makes you think that it's not just about Holloway, that it's really about just the team play?
Kerbs, who do you think Jim Montgomery tries to match up with that Mark Scheifele line?
You listen, I think you have to, the way you have to look at these first two games, I do think that if you can get the Thomas line away from them a little bit, it's probably a good thing. And then that's just because they've had – now, you got to understand this too. Jim Montgomery's not a hard matchup guy. So when you look at some of the chances that Scheifele and Connor line have gotten, you know, it hasn't just been against the Robert Thomas line. But I think what changes the course of a game is I think, number one, I do think you probably see Shen – his line, you get a couple of those matchups, see how it goes. Because if you've got that second change, fellas, and you then get Robert Thomas against a different grouping out there, and you start to have some more offensive success, or you get an offensive success doesn't necessarily mean you're pumping a bunch of goals past Hellebuck. It's just better offensive zone time, holding on to that puck longer below the goal line. You know, and when you talk to some of the players, they're talking about how you get a hold of the puck, and then Winnipeg is just sawing you so fast that, you know, they haven't made great plays in that offensive zone. To me, that's where the flow of a game can change. And then then you change even how their top line can look a little bit. So that's where I'm looking, guys, is just how much that last change actually does make a difference here.
We're talking to Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues here on 101 ESPN. Kerbs, Alex mentioned the issues without Dylan Holloway in the lineup. I did a deep dive on this before the show today to kind of find out, like, how deep does this go, the issues on that shin line without Holloway, and they were pretty interesting to me. I'm curious your thoughts on these. When Shin and Kyrou were playing with Holloway at 5-on-5 this year, high danger chances, which is really the issue for them in this series thus far, is the lack of them. It was 91-62 in favor of the Blues. About 60% of the high danger chances were for the Blues when those three were on the ice. Since Holloway's gone down, the Shin and Kyrou line has produced one high danger chance, and they've allowed 14 at 5-on-5. Kerbs, what does that say about Dylan Holloway, and what does it say about the Blues' current situation without him?
Well, I think it says that he's been an important piece of it. I think you get those chances because he's able to get in there on the speed. You know, you compared the Thomas line to the Shen line. The difference in how the different wingers play. All right, so you will see more down low play with Pavel Buchnevich than you will with Jordan Kyrou. Jordan Kyrou can play with that puck higher up. He's more of that possession guy with a little bit of space. So one of the guys that created that space was Dylan Holloway. He also got in fast and hard. So he allowed, I mean, the other big part of it is he allowed the Blues to get to more pucks in that offensive zone. I think Dylan Holloway might have been one of the best forwards all season long, and I don't have the analytics behind this. I'm going on my own eye here, guys. In terms of extending shifts to help the teammates out. Like, more times than not, when his line mates were changing, you'd see Dylan Holloway use that speed to still get in there and force some other plays. And I think that's important. So Dylan Holloway goes out. Then what happens? Okay, you've got a tech saying they can come in, but you've had Snuggerud come in. He plays differently than that. That takes some adjustment. He's looked fine. He's actually looked great at times. But it's just some adjustment. It's not the same combination as having him in there. So I would expect some of those numbers. I don't know if I'd expect them to be as drastic as you had there, BK, but I would expect those numbers to be different because you're not coming in with this. One, you're not coming in with the same player, and in some ways, you're not coming in with the same skill set. So, but listen, but that's the way it is. Now that's the way it is. I still think take that mix out of there, guys. I still think you still can create more chances 5-on-5. I think the way the St. Louis Blues have gone, I think this experienced defensive core can have a much better impact than they have on the offensive play. We haven't seen enough shot attempts or shots from them. And things along those kind of lines is where the difference has to be made up. But, yeah, look, you're clearly missing Holloway from the moment he went down, and that includes those 3 losses in the regular season.
Curbs, Monty said it before the series began, and he reiterated it today, talking about net front battle is what's going to win this series. And not only have the Blues struggled in the offensive zone, but defensively, it seems like Winnipeg's had a pretty easy time getting to the front of the net. What stood out to you in those 2 games in their own end of the Blues' struggles?
Well, it's an interesting aspect of the game here. Jim Montgomery said today something that I thought was interesting. He said it's getting to the front of the net when you've got the shots coming, right? And that's something that Winnipeg has done really well. Honestly, it's been a part of Winnipeg's DNA since they moved up there. It really has. And Colorado's another team that does it really well as well. They get the puck on somebody's stick, and the timing of somebody going to the net while that shot is coming is what creates the havoc. And I think that's where, the Blues they haven't killed as many plays down low. When they haven't been able to get the puck out, right? And then to me, they just haven't been quick enough in their own zone. It's sort of like, all right, let's defend the house and then go when we get a chance. And I think they're just going to have to be more aggressive to kill plays in their own end. If you do that, you're going to prevent Winnipeg from getting to the front of the net because the Winnipeg Jets are going to have to go to the wall and go to the corners to play the puck, right? I mean, if you kill and we said, Joe, and if you remember the broadcast in Game 1, Joe and I said this early in Game 1. The one thing that's going to give you some indigestion is if you get the puck on your stick and you don't get it out of the zone. That's when Winnipeg can really start to bite you, those second and third opportunities. And we've seen a good number of times now in Games 1 and 2, whether it be off a face-off win when the Blues have been on the penalty kill or even at even strength. They've won the draws, they've won possession of the puck, and then they're not getting it out of the zone. To me, that's the biggest key. You've got to make Winnipeg have a few more one-and-dones in this series.
All right, Kerbs, we'll get you out of here on this one. Chris Kerber is the voice of the Blues. He'll be on the call for Game 3 tomorrow night right here in your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. You're around this team as much as anybody. You, Joey, you guys are around the club. This team has faced as much adversity as any team that's currently in the playoffs this season. They fired their coach, went through the injuries, won 12 games in a row, and then ultimately had to win the final game to get in. What is the vibe around the group right now, heading into game number 3?
The vibe around this group has not changed from training camp to Game 10 to Game 30 to Game 82 to this one. I'm telling you, it's one thing that I absolutely love about this team. Now, is the vibe going to be enough to win this series to come back? I don't know. That I don't have the crystal ball on. But what excites me about that question and that topic, BK, is for a group. I mean, in that last game, the St. Louis Blues had 7 players in the lineup that were 25 and younger. You don't notice the nerves. You don't look at players and think that a moment's too big. You see I sat today for 7 or 8 minutes talking with Tyler Tucker about playing the right side, about just the game and what it was like and things like that. I don't get the sense that anything from these guys is too big. They're pretty flatlined when it comes to the vibe, and that is something I think you got to be really excited about because they're getting valuable experience. They know what's on the line, right? They know their backs are against the wall, and they're still going about it with a really business-like attitude. I think that's something that Jim Montgomery has brought to the table. I think it's something that the leadership of Parayko and Falk and Shen and those guys have brought to the table, and Robert Thomas, and it's permeating through this lineup. I love the vibe of this team, and to be honest with you, and I'm no BS here. I'm telling you guys, in my opinion, it hasn't changed throughout the course of this season, the vibe you get when you're around these guys.
Hey, Curbs, we appreciate the time, man. Looking forward to Game 3 tomorrow night at Enterprise Center. We'll be out there for the show tomorrow starting at 11 o'clock, and then we'll be out there for the game as well.
Yeah, BK and Tanner hopping on pregame with us tomorrow, Curb. Pre- and
post-game hosts.
I love it. The bigger, the better. We got plenty of room on this train.
Love to see it. Curbs, appreciate the time as always, man. See you tomorrow.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
You got it. That's Chris Kerber, the voice of the Blues here on 101 ESPN.
He made a train reference. Don't you dare think about it.
I didn't. You were the one that put it in my head.
I
Now
didn't
he's
think
thinking
about
about
it
it.
either.
I know how BK works.
Speaking of a train,
Wait, what?
the Cardinals bullpen went off the rails, and we'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Cardinals lose 4-1 today in Atlanta. Lose 2 out of 3 on the road at the Braves. Story of the day today. Once again, the bullpen. 6 strong innings out of Miles Michaelis. 6 hits, no earned runs allowed. Then John King comes in, gives up 2 hits, allows a run. Kyle Leahy has to clean up his mess, and he does exactly that. 2/3 of an inning. Has a strikeout, needed only 9 pitches to do it, boom, out of the inning. Then Jojo Romero comes in the next inning. He records an out, but does so while also giving up 2 runs. Ryan Fernandez comes in with the 2 on. Those were the 2 runs that scored. Gives up a homer on the 3rd pitch of the game. Ryan Fernandez, once again, did not look particularly good. Alex, the Cardinals bullpen is the story of the season thus far. It's hard to ignore. Last year was the story of the season in a positive way. This year it's a negative. They trust 3 guys. 3. It's Ryan Helsley, who has pitched once in the last week. It's Kyle Leahy, who pitches every day. And it's Phil Maton, who, again, pitches every day. My guess is he was unavailable today because of the usage over the course of the last week. They've got to do something here. I understand trying to make this thing work with Ryan Fernandez, and I typically defer on these things to the team because they know more about the person, they know more about what they're working on and how they can make it better, and whether that needs to happen at the big league level or in the minor leagues. So I will defer until it becomes too much to overcome. They have to send Ryan Fernandez down to AAA. This one is not a hard decision. Tomorrow, there should be some kind of a report. I guess it'll be Friday before the game because they don't have to make it tomorrow. But on Friday at some point, it'll probably be Fernandez going down, Riley O'Brien coming back up. And it's very simple because he cannot continue to go into these high leverage situations and they continue to give him the opportunities. Today, I don't really know what the alternative was. I guess you could have gone there to Swanson. It's a really tough spot for a young kid making his first real opportunity at the big league level. I wouldn't have done that either. But Fernandez can't keep going out there. You can't even give Ollie the opportunity to continue to put him out into those situations. Take away the toy and go with Riley O'Brien. You're basically using a 6-man bullpen right now, given the 6-man rotation, plus Swanson not being a part of any of these games. He's pitched once since his call-up. They've got to send Ryan Fernandez back down.
Yeah, they do. And I mean, the people that are blaming Ollie right now, I think the blame should be directed towards the front office because you have not made a move with this roster and you should have made a move at this point. You continue to allow the manager to force this because you haven't given him the weapons to use. So I'm not going to blame Ollie. I'm going to blame the general manager, the president of baseball operations, for not making those moves. Me personally, though, and look, they're smarter than I am when it comes to baseball. There's no doubt about that. I probably would have tried Swanson there because you know what the outcome is with Fernandez. He's struggling. And I understand the whole, well, he's young and we don't want to put him in that position. Hey, man, if you're at the big leagues, you're going to get put into these ideal situations. We can't baby you here. If you're here, you're going to go out there because you're available to us. Pitch through it. If you want to be a big leaguer, this is your opportunity to do it. That might be too cruel on my end. I understand you have to manage the person as well as the athlete. I would have at least tried that because for the last 2 outings, it's been blown up on Ryan Fernandez.
And it's not just 2. It's not like
7.
No,
I know. I mean, but like the last 2 outings we've seen, he can't even get outs.
It's the same situations that he keeps coming into. It's, hey, man, if you allow a run, you're bleeped. Like the team is screwed. There's no way to come out of it. And that was the case today. It sucks for Michaelis because he finally had a good game. Like he's actually been pretty decent in his last 3 starts or so. And they get nothing out of it. They got a good start out of the day. They got nothing offensively, but when you have a bullpen implode the way that it did it today, that wouldn't have mattered a whole lot either. The story of the game was, once again, your bullpen. And you have 3 guys that you trust. Some of this, sure, you can argue whether or not Ollie should have gone a certain direction, whether it's today's game or previously. Man, this is about the guys that he has available. When you have a lineup that is a bunch of not very good hitters, there's not much a manager can do to make that a good lineup, right? You don't have the dudes. Right now, they don't have the dudes in the bullpen, and he tries to use them as often as he can. Eventually, you just have to go with somebody else.
Yeah, today was a day where I don't think he had good options. And to your point on Swanson, worst case scenario is you got what just happened, right? It ends up being a loss. Problem today was, hey, you need your starter to eat innings. Credit to Michaelis, he did. You need the offense to put up more than 1 run. If you know Maton is down for the day, your offense has got to come through for more than 1 run. Look, today, if they were only going to get 1 run from their offense, it was a scheduled loss based on what they had available in the bullpen.
And by the way, Swanson in Memphis this year, he's been used 3 times in the 8th inning, 2 times in the 7th inning, and once in the 9th inning, has not given up a hit.
Swanson's been good.
I think it was Chip one day on the broadcast say, I think he's like tied for the most saves in the minors over the last like 3 years. Yeah. So he's used to high pressure situations.
You're doing it at AAA. The next step is the majors, and if you come in, again, not an ideal scenario, but you're here. Go out there and pitch.
I'm sure the Fast Lane will have plenty of thoughts for you guys today from 2 to 6. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Chris Pronger is going to join us on the show. Joey Vitale will join us on the show.
Hopefully your guy, Boost Boudreaux.
Nice. We'll be broadcasting live from Enterprise Center, previewing all that there is to offer for game number 3, Blues versus the Jets. Alex has a last-minute Blues podcast out. We have a new Redbird report coming out later on today. All the BK and Ferrario you could possibly ask for. Fast Lane coming up next year on 101 ESPN.